Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hotline League, episode 211. Boy, we've got a banger of a show for you tonight, as Mark's camera goes weird. Anyway, it's cool, because basically in the first hour, we're going to have you all call in with your general takes, things you want to talk about, how the league is going, anything that's on your mind. I don't think there's nothing too pressing. I don't know. We'll look in a second, see if there's any hot topics that we should be talking about. But in the second half, we're going to have Phil, who's the executive director of the Players Association, the LCS Players Association, as well as Marty, who used to work for Splice, or ran Splice, founded Splice, I forget, now works for a company. And basically, they have theoretically figured out how to fund the Players Association for a very long time without actually taking money from the players. So now I don't think this thing is going to die. So we're going to talk about them. They did an AMA.
Announcing the LSP with FTX. Partner with FTX.
It's kind of complicated, but listen, stick around because we're going to make sense of it. It's going to be good. And then you guys can call in with your takes about the LCSPA. And it does not have to be about this new partnership. You can be like, hey, Phil, what about all these players that are stuck in contract prison or academy prison in the LCS? Like, what are you guys going to do about that? Or any number of different things. Feel free to do that. But so for now, we'll be taking calls not about LCSPA, and then we'll have them join in the second half. Mark, how are you doing?
Good. What did I do? What have I been watching? I've been watching more Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm through Dungeon Dice Monsters arc, on to season 2, and I gotta tell you, this show slaps. Honestly, kind of a good show. It's terrible. It knows it's terrible, I think. I think it's kind of good.
All right. Is that it? Is that all you got?
I know I watched other things, but I can't remember them.
Well, I'll talk.
I finished Pam. Oh, new Survivor. Hey, new Survivor. Duke's your favorite character? God, that's disgusting. Duke Devlin had the worst. You go from Pegasus trying to take over the world and steal souls so he gets strong enough to resurrect his dead lover to fucking Duke Devlin just trying to prove that Yuki cheated at the game by beating him at the first time he plays a different game. The fucking drop off in writing for that arc is, and they're like, oh, what are the stakes?
There's a look.
Oh,
this is
Joey's
why you actively hurt the viewership of our content by just being Mr. Spoilers. Like, even Jack is in the chat right now upset about the spoilers. So is Peter Dunn from EG.
Or Yu-Gi-Oh! That came out 20 years ago. Jack?
All right, here's my argument. Jack has a child. At least one. I forget if he said a second. But he probably was too old to watch Yu-Gi-Oh! When it first came out. But now he's at the point where he could watch it with his family. Oh,
it is
Insanity. Insanity in the chat says, nice job. I was going to watch it this week. Now I'm not.
It is a fact, a scientifically studied fact, that people enjoy things more after being spoiled. Statistically, most people end up enjoying a piece of content more once it's spoiled. You can Google it.
Okay.
Brandon Sanderson talks about it all the time.
I was trying to paint you as a family man, Jack. Okay. Mark, don't talk about how Brandon Sanderson talks about that all the time. He's literally doing a Kickstarter right now that's all predicated on the idea of avoiding
He literally
spoilers.
put the first 6 chapters of each of the books online.
Yes, but he says in the Kickstarter, don't even talk about the titles of these things because people might want to avoid spoilers.
That's a hype-generating technique.
Okay, shut up. Anyway,
psychological phenomenon.
Shout out to Alienware and Grubhub. I saw Marcy from Alienware in the chat earlier. Also, by the way, I'll talk about this later, but until March 16th, Travis5 will get you $5 off your Grubhub order of $10 plus, only for the first 2,500 orders. I want to shout that out because it's the first time we've done a promo code with them specifically for us, so I'm hoping there's a ton of you guys that will use that. Thanks for asking, Mark, was in Florida for almost all of last week. You don't have any follow-ups. You don't want to... I didn't know
you were just like, I didn't know you were engaged.
I thought you would take an interest. Okay, so I went to Florida last week.
I know why you were there already. You went to Full Sail University.
I went to Full Sail University as part of a sponsor thing. They do something called Hall of Fame. I'm wearing their shirt right now. We're gonna talk. There will be future episodes of Hotline League that will be. I'll be showcasing like a little vlog of some of the stuff that I did there, which will be fun. But I actually had a really good time, and it was like my first thing that I have done in 2 years that was like I don't know, something bigger than going to the LCS. And so it was neat to meet a bunch of people and have a good time and learn a lot about the university. That's pretty cool. So I had a good time doing that. And then I watched here's my mini rant. We need to get into the show, but I will say my little mini rant mark on the film and video stuff is all these streaming services are cutting, I assume it's budgets, the length of seasons of shows so much that it is actually really annoying and hinders the content. I watched all of the second season of Space Force, which was about as like average as the first season, but I still like it. And it's only 7 episodes long. The episodes themselves are like 25 minutes long, and so it's like I was on a 5-hour flight back, and I watched the series and the whole season was basically done with it halfway through the flight, and I'm like, I just consumed this entire season in like 3 hours, and I find that incredibly aggravating. Less than 3 hours. I find that incredibly aggravating because there's entire episodes where there's like plot threads that just go nowhere because I don't know. There's a plot thread that's about budget cuts, which I assume means that the show got budget cuts, because normally that's what happens when people talk about budget cuts in a show, is they're referencing real life stuff. But it's actually incredibly frustrating that like I agree that 24 episodes of a show was too long back in the day, whenever like that was what ABC and NBC were doing.
Heroes was perfect.
But then it goes down to like, then it was 12 episodes, and I was like, okay, that's pretty good. You can do a lot. And then shows started doing like 10 and then 9, and now like Hawkeye was like 6 episodes, Space Force season 2 is like 7, and I'm just like, these are not like, we're getting into just, you're making a movie at this point in time, but not without movie budget, and it's incredibly frustrating.
I feel like that could be part of it, is that like some of these things are just supposed to be movies that they stretch to be a show as well, so that they can sell you more of it. I don't know how it works. I also saw someone tweet something out, and I was too stupid to really care, about how Netflix, like something to do with like the amount of seasons that something gets affects how much they have to spend on it and what people get paid. And by doing mostly 2 seasons at full budget on a streaming service versus seasons, I didn't really understand it, but it was basically like streaming service bad.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I believe you.
Well, I don't know. TSM Marikusu says, is the show still about League? Yes, but we spend the first 15 minutes showcasing how relatable we are. Actually, so that you have a connection to us.
We're going to take this time to announce that Hotline League's no longer about League. We're dropping the League part. It's just called Hotline. And we don't take calls, actually. That part's a lie as well. And Travis and I just talk about what we've watched this week.
Yeah. Okay. So what do we got to talk about? Champions Queue first split is done. That ended last week, technically. I think we could have talked about it on last week's episode, but I guess there's a lot to talk about.
Did we not? I don't remember where I talked about that.
I don't think we really did. And so we've got the full. We can talk about that. Or the second season is now, or second split has now begun. So either way, I think we can talk about Champions Queue if people want. Viewership in the gutter. So we can talk about that. What?
Oh, I was gonna say, like, I actually haven't noticed because I'm just usually.
Like the second game, I think on Saturday, I want to say, had like 64K on Twitch, which just feels
killing it.
Yeah, like that's what it used to be last year when you had co-streaming, and so you had an additional like 20K on the platform. Now it's just really rough. C9 signs
CLG's on a heater, and Golden Guardians and Immortals are in free fall, and TSM will never win another game for the rest of the LCS.
I cursed an arrow by having him predict that they would only lose 3 more games, and then they went to immediately go 0-4 after he did that interview, which is very funny. Let's see. Yeah, Svenskaren joins C9. Anything else? Twitch chat. Or am I forgetting anything?
I lost my bet. Raz is about to lose his bet on FlyQuest.
What was Raz's bet?
He said that they would go 12-6 or something. or better. So if they lose one more, he loses. Technically, he's still alive right now, but he's fucked.
Dude, Jack, you got to talk to Summit, because I did an interview with Summit. I don't think the interview's bad, but I was just like, oh man, so like Summit, they've hyped up you versus Whippo a ton. This is, what was it like facing him? What do you think of him? He's like, Whippo's good. And I was like, dude, on Twitter, you're running out there talking about how you're like murder people, and then you just gapped Whippo, and now you're telling me that Whippo's good? And he's like, yeah, I'm different than I am on Twitter. And I was like, okay, well, glad we did. I need some extra. Have him bring some spice. That would be good. Spawn says Academy regular season ended. Sure, we can talk about that.
I cast the last day of it. That did happen.
Listen, Spawn. Let's not have LCS when LCS viewership is not in free fall. I will care about covering Academy, but right now we need to shore up the hatches on the first thing. Okay, the primary thing. We can't be. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, without further ado, Mark, are you pulling anybody yet?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
Do I do that?
You want to say the spiel then?
All spiel. Well, this is a good
episode. A couple episodes. Spiel.
Yeah. So if you've never seen the show before, this is actually a live call-in show. You get to go ahead and join the Discord that we're in. Travis and I will be polling callers based off their takes that they submit through this Discord. Go ahead and join the Pleb Calls voice channel when you get in here. And then you're going to go ahead and put your topic in the Pleb Topics text channel. Go ahead and write it out. If I like your topic, I will pull you from there to the waiting room where you will hang out until it's your turn to come on. And then we'll do a quick mic check to make sure everything sounds good before pulling you on. I feel like I have more problems with callers recently. I feel like callers
Audio issues?
Yeah, they're not like checking their mics ahead of time, or they're like muting Discord but only listening to the stream, so like 30 seconds behind. Just be ready to go a little bit. All right, that's all I ask. It's not a big ask. But yeah, then you'll be on here talking with Travis and I.
Yep.
Woohoo.
Well, Mark. Oh, and also if you're a sub, please sync. First off, thank you for being a sub. Please sync your Discord with your Twitch so that you can get access to the subtopics channel, which moves a little slower, and so it kind of increases your chances of being on the show, but it doesn't give you a guaranteed slot if your idea is shit. Okay. Let me read out some subs while we wait. Thank you to DJ Morali, Kanamaste, Darth Nomi, Metal Rider, or Raider, Papalier, Real Foxy 1, La Crusette, Seismix, Adam XK, Chevol, SkyG, Gift a Sub, Poison, Ari Waddle, Wilson, SkyG, Haru, Horizon Cast for a whole year, Cyberhealer, Smoke Dog, Filth Monk, and PJ Salt. There's more, and I will shout them out, but I don't want to just...
Let me get a caller, so we're going.
Yeah.
One of the people I called is again, deafened in Discord. They had a take that I kind of liked, and they have not undeafened in Discord.
You can't hear Mark if you have your headphones muted on Discord.
There we go.
Thank God. Okay, PJ Salt, thank you. Sky G, Retro Paint, Fiery Toastman, Badger Yar, Flick Nickum, Gengariffith, NA Double Daddy, Yeti022, Beef Stews. Thank you, everybody, for all of the subs. I'm going to be trying to pull for Raiden. I'm going to be doing some Genshin streaming after the show's done, because I don't have anything else going on. So, yeah. Hello. The Themothersauce is here. Great name. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Ontario, Canada.
And we've had you on before, right?
Yeah, I was on a couple weeks ago, I think.
Underneath a different name?
No.
I remember. What do you want to talk about on the show?
Yeah, my take is that Biofrost is going to win Spring MVP.
Biofrost is going to win Spring MVP. I'm excited to hear about this because I feel like there's some players on Cloud9 that are going to put up more of a fight. Okay, why do you think Biofrost?
Well, okay, I would define MVP as like most valuable to your team. Like, can we agree that that's like a good definition of an MVP?
No. Mark, what is your? Yeah,
no?
I feel like it's the most valuable player in the league, not because if that's the case, then like you could just stick Bjergsen on the 10th place team and be like, He was the MVP. He was the most valuable.
Who needs the MVP? Because everyone on TSM feeds, and he's up there with 1 kill and a 30 CS lead.
Mothersauce is your still your plan?
Okay, well I'll stick by my
What? How about would you like it to be? He is going to be the number 1 support, like all pro support winner.
No, I'll stick with MVP.
Okay. Let him go.
This was his first point.
He's got more, I bet. He's got more in the tank.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I think he's just that instrumental to Dignitas's success as a whole, and I think there's a case that he's like the best support in the league. He's like I look at Biofrost as like a carry support. He does a lot of his team's damage, and he also dies the least. Him and Neo pretty much win lane, I would say 75-80% of the time. And I mean, I think he had that one 3-man engage on Tom Kench. I think it was against 100 Thieves during Super Week. And then they obviously had this past week that outplay on Immortals, the 4v2 under tower.
Mark, what have you thought of Biofrost? Because I feel like people really soured on him after his first initial run at TSM. He went to CLG, and then when he joined TSM, I feel like people thought he was he rejoined TSM. I think people thought he was the weakest link on that team. So do you feel like he's gone into hibernation, took a year off, and has now come back and is just beating down people?
Pretty much. I actually don't I disagree with the MVP thing just because I don't think Dignitas is a good enough team. And I mean, I like Bio, but support's a position that you can win an MVP, but your team kind of needs to be winning because you can't just like smurf a lane. And even then, like how many times is an MVP from on a 6th place team? Probably never. But I think you could maybe make a case for all pro. You know, it's tough. I think he will get 1 All-Pro. He might not be first per team, but I do think the potential is there, right? So who could you put above him right now? Core is probably your best bet, but Core hasn't played the whole season. And if you want me to be honest, he is really fucking good.
Core is really good.
Yeah, Core is really good.
Yeah.
I think he is.
I like that you had to be honest. You built that up as if you were about to like say something controversial, and then your take was, "If you want me to be honest, Core JJ, pretty good player."
My take with it was going to be Core JJ is a little more volatile than Biofrost. I feel like I don't really see Biofrost. I would have to think about a time where I watched Biofrost int a kill
since he came back.
What's that?
He's got pretty low deaths across like the whole league.
What'd you say, Travis?
I said since he came back. You mean?
No.
Oh, really? Okay. I feel like whenever he was on TSM, the second time people were.
Well, I'm only talking about this split. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, yeah. Since he came back,
you're throwing me for a loop by talking about shit that doesn't matter when we're talking about an award that only applies to this split, Travis.
You said you'd have to think about it as if you were stretching out past time. Anyway, continue.
I think you're just making shit up. I'm just saying, Core JJ will int more things because he plays more aggressive champions. Like he picked Nautilus 3 games in a row, and Nautilus a bit of feeder champ, things can go right or wrong. Team Liquid also throws their mid games a lot, and a lot of the times, Core is a part of those throws. He's trying to make a lot of plays happen. What's that?
Mothersauce?
I'm trying so hard to just talk through my thoughts.
Just say it. I don't
keep getting
know why he
interrupted by
interrupted.
people.
Continue.
Okay, so Core is really fucking good. He makes a lot of plays happen. I think he's a better player than Biofrost, and he makes big decisions for the team. But he also sometimes kills himself trying to make these plays happen, and sometimes they go wrong. And I think Biofrost is a more stable player, but a lower impact player. He also plays a lot more enchanters. He'll spam pick like Lux and things like that, and that allows him to win lane and look good, but then not has as much of a contribution in some team fights. So he has individually won them games, like the binding onto tactical. That you can play him tactical, of course. I think Biofrost is really good. And I think Core JJ has not been like the most insane player ever, but he is really good.
All right. So besides Core, is there anybody else?
So like here's an interesting
Winsome?
number. Biofrost leads the league in damage percent of supports. Give him the MVP.
I mean, that's like a Hotline League caller take. I call in and be like, so I was just looking at Oracle's Elixir, and I looked at one single stat, and so that's why.
No, I looked at his death share too.
All right, I mean, like, so here's the thing. I feel like even just like I still think Core is playing better than him, but I think it's closer than public perception would have you think, just because Bio's on Dignitas and they're losing a lot, and he doesn't have nearly the support around him. Like, one's playing with Hans, Bjergsen, Santorin, and Bwipo. You know, like, thank God. I wasn't gonna throw the whole team under the bus. Said just one person. I just feel like, you know, it's hard for Bio to look as good sometimes as well. But I think the champion pool thing does play into it.
What about Ole, Mark? Because Ole's in a similar position, right, to Biofrost. So I'm curious how you would compare the two of them.
I think Ole hasn't been as good as Bio. Neo and Bio are really good in lane, whereas I feel like Golden Guardian's bot lane is a little more hit or miss.
Yeah.
But I think it's the race for support right now. God, it's kind of hard. I feel like you have Core JJ for sure up there. I think Bio for sure is up there. And then it's kind of close for third if we're doing all pro between Vulcan, Winsome, Afro. I don't think I can do Ole. I think there's a lot of good supports right now, but like I honestly think any three of those could get it. It'd be reasonable.
Well, Themothersauce, thank you so much. Is there anything you want to shout out before we go on to the next caller?
Yeah, shout out Hotline League, shout out Alienware, shout out Grubhub. It's not in Canada, but if it was, I'd use it.
Fantastic. Well, maybe when you visit the States, if you come here for a couple days, you have to use Grubhub. Is that okay?
All right, deal.
Okay. Thank you so much for the call, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah. All right. There's a ghost behind Mark right now.
This apartment's haunted.
Yes, exactly. Her expression sadly did not. Oh no, it did kick. Okay. You want to go grab the next caller?
No, you're good.
You want to go grab the next caller?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeti Beef Stews, Fart Master Blaster, I Love You Chat, Maddie C412, and Blue Jay. Thank you all for your subs. All right, Mark is grabbing the next caller. Blah, blah, blah. We're waiting for them to come through. I'm just checking, making sure that our folks are good to join. And Razenkin is here, or is it? Wait, I feel like I've read your name before. Do you sub frequently?
I do, yeah.
Do you have a different spelling of it?
It's three syllables. I know it's weird.
Okay, so but it is spelled differently on Twitch.
No, I forget. I'm sorry.
Where are you from? Where are you calling from?
I'm from New York.
New York. What do you want to talk about on the show?
So I just wanted to bring up the fact that even with Champions Queue, pros still aren't playing enough games, and I'm just trying to put the point out that the culture behind the NA pros is still the problem, even when you give them what they want. Even when the LCSPA gets Champions Queue through with all the things that pros wanted, with like a smaller player base, low ping, you can stream it, you know, everything, and it's simple to use with just a Discord bot and even a prize pool, they still don't play enough. Pros don't play enough, and then also the scrim culture in NA doesn't help that fact either.
Razenkin, what is the average schedule like the daily itinerary for an LCS pro on a non-game day?
Non-game day should be probably 1 hour prep when you come in. Probably
no, I'm saying what is it?
What do you think it is right now?
Scheduled probably like 9 hours.
I guess I'm asking what do you know how they're spending their time?
I mean, I'm assuming like around 5 to 6 hours on scrims, and then there should be something that I listened to something Ole said today. Something they call free time after, where you're at your office or your facility or whatever, and you have quote unquote free time that you should be spending, playing solo queue or fodder viewing or things like that. That some pros I feel like don't use effectively, or it's not seen normal from another region's culture. It's more lax, less serious.
So I want to pick your brain a little bit. Is there a team or player that is standing out to you? Because I think a lot of people who just lightly follow Challenger Queue will see JoJo has played like literally hundreds of games of this in solo queue. Like, I think JoJo is on pace to play like 2,000 to 3,000 games of Champions Queue / solo queue this split, which is absolutely on pace with major Korean players and things like that. I think there's some other people who are on pace with that, who are pros. Is there someone that, like, what is making you have this take? I guess you're saying this and I'm hearing what you're saying. I might not agree yet, but like, what is the thing you've seen to give you this opinion?
So I was a pretty big TSM fan in the past, so when I go and take a look at TSM's numbers in Champions Queue, I can see that JoJo has played more games than almost 4 of the members combined. And that's only because Shenyi and Takeover are back. Like, if Takeover was still their academy mid laner, I believe that JoJo has almost more games played than the entire team.
So are there, okay, besides TSM makes sense. Have you looked at C9's numbers lately?
Not in totality. I was looking through, but I noticed that, if you have around 60, 70 games played, that seems pretty average for most players, So it's less than, I feel that, like, you should still hit a bar where you should be playing a certain number of games, not 13, 8, and 36, when the whole point is to give you a good practice environment. So you complain about solo queue, but you don't play in the better queue.
Here's what the reason I asked you originally, what does a pro player's day look like in the LCS, is because, and I mean no disrespect to you in this, but I feel like I've seen takes like this a lot through the years, where fans say North American players don't work hard enough, or they are not, trying hard enough, or they don't practice enough, and then these people have no idea what their schedules are like. That's to say, the take could even be true. Like, I'm not, like, maybe there is a world where, like, we have 50% of the hours of, like, LCK teams or LPL teams or something like that. But it's very funny because people get these opinions, and then you ask them, like, okay, where do you think that they're not working enough? You think that they're like they don't have enough scrims in the day, or you're like, well, they come in at noon and then they leave at 4 or something, and then you ask them, and it's just kind of like, I don't know what their scrims are schedules like, and that's kind of what I'm guessing are getting from here.
It's like, if you're scrimming only 5 games, then in other regions they do 2 blocks of 3, which, so already in your scrims you're playing more, and then a lot of teams also triple block, so they add another set of 3 games after that. If that's more the norm in other regions, I can understand not wanting to play 9 games for scrims only. Yeah. Like, I can understand that, but playing 5 and then giving your team, say, free time to, like, go and play solo queue, and you don't go and play, I feel like that's where the problem is. Like, that free time shouldn't be free time. It should be looked at as more like, go play solo queue, don't do something else.
So are teams only playing 5 games? It's not 2 blocks of 3. Like,
I think it's 2 blocks of 3.
That's what it used to be.
I believe it used to be 2 blocks of 3. I believe more recently it is 1 block of 5.
I think says it's 5. 1. Huh.
Anyway, my understanding is, I guess we'll have to see, but my understanding was that our current scrim amounts match the LEC scrim amounts. I think we scrim less.
How many world titles does the LEC have again?
Yeah, no, I know it's fair, but I'm just saying.
You know what's hilarious? Whenever you bring this up and then someone says Fnatic, I go, "Is TSM a world semifinalist?"
Okay. We don't need to talk about season 1 stuff. Mark, that's so off topic.
It's so funny.
I know you complained so much about the Fnatic stuff. It wasn't a world championship. Blah blah blah. Way off topic. So my understanding is we have similar numbers to LEC, and then yes, LCK and LPL scrim more. I don't know if it's true necessarily that they practice more, but that's kind of where we're at. The other thing I want to get into, Razenkin, is that there are some teams, like this is why I have been nervous to dive in on like the teams that are not doing Champions Queue. There are some teams that I think are triple blocking right now. I would not be surprised if TSM is triple blocking, because I heard a story a while ago about how a while back, maybe it was last year or 2 years ago, Andy found out that the LPL teams were triple blocking and that LCS teams weren't, and so he kind of like brute forced his team to do it at a point in time where they were doing well, and then after they started doing that, they nosedived a little bit in their results, which was kind of funny to me when I heard the story. I've heard also that TSM is trying to get teams to move in the North America to go back to like a triple block schedule. This is my understanding, or the latest rumor. So I would imagine there's a good chance that TSM is triple blocking right now, and that is why I am a little nervous to condemn players who you don't see play Champions Queue in the evening, because I don't have enough information to know if they are spending that additional time in other scrims. Now, of course, the question becomes, who are they scrimming? I don't know, but I would imagine C9 is probably scrimming their academy team.
I doubt anyone good is scrimming them right now anyways. So, like, if you're like, wow, they can't get scrims versus Cloud9 as a whole, you know, like, of course, they're probably scrimming more teams around them in the standings or academy teams. The triple blocking thing, I was going to bring that up about teams at the bottom of the standings have a little bit more incentive to triple block, because the things that you're probably struggling with are not just individual skill, but like team coordination, and like you just want to get more reps as a team in, which I think can at times make it look like an inverse weird relationship where it's like, oh, this team isn't playing as much solo queue, therefore they're worse. And it's like, well, they're spending that time doing some more team oriented things. So there is a little bit of chicken or the egg about where the numbers are and why they're low for some people. And I think this split has seen some grinders that we don't always see. And I know historically I've looked at our numbers compared to other major regions' numbers of solo queue games and things like that, and tried to account for, you know, longer queue times and whatnot, and seeing how much we were doing. And the one bit of sympathy I'll give the caller is the like hours spent workload question that people bring up, you know, and people talk about what's a healthy work-life balance and all that stuff. And I am a little sympathetic to the idea that's like, well, trying to be the world best at something is hardly ever healthy for work-life balance. It's hard to want to be the best in the world at something and not become a little upset. Like you can't not be a little obsessive and achieve that. And that's just something that a lot of players are in other sports the same way, not just esports, but a lot of the best players are. You know, Kobe was obsessive. Tom Brady is obsessive. Like, these people have big egos, and that drives them to go above and beyond what is considered normal, healthy human behavior. And that's part of the reason they're at the top. So I do think it's not a 9-to-5 job, and it shouldn't be expected to be that way. But I also think, to this point, just looking at numbers is not necessarily indicative of how hard a team is trying.
I think so. I heard Kobe talking about this on his stream earlier today, where he was saying, like, there are some players that haven't even played Champions Queue at all yet, and he's part of the opinion that there should be like
a minimum.
Yeah, or at least like there should be public pressure essentially to do this. And I tweeted, I didn't do it last week because Champions Queue was down, but people can go see. About 10 days ago or so, I tweeted a listing of all the players and how much they had played Champions Queue during that week. And we are working on creating a weekly video that I will be tweeting out that showcases each team, ranks them by their average elo of their 5 players, and then shows like basically a chart of each of the teams or each of the players with like how many wins they had, how many games they played, what their elo is, et cetera, et cetera. And when I did this, there was some pushback. I'll put it in the chat right now for those that want to see. When I did this, there was some pushback from folks that were like, why are you doing this? Where is it? I can't find it now. I can't find where people were complaining about it. But Oh, no, here we go. Here's the question. Why are you doing this? Why are you expecting to accomplish with this other than create negativity? This will create unnecessary narratives around Champions Queue. I think that I hope that we can get to a place where, because the Champions Queue data is public, the players who are not playing at all because they are doing something else, like triple blocking or something, need to say, oh, the reason I haven't played 80 Champions Queue games all split long is because my team triple blocks. Of course, then the question becomes like, okay, but somebody else on your team has played like 50 games and you've played 0. Presumably they're also triple blocking. I don't know. But like I do want to raise conversation around this and make, like, the more we talk about Champions Queue, I remember I talked to Mark and Emily about this, was like, I want them to talk about Champions Queue a lot on the broadcast, because the more you're able to kind of showcase players using this and hyping it up and all that stuff, the more likely you are to incentivize people to do it, or at least explain why they're not playing it. So that's kind of my thought.
Big agree.
Razenkin, though, I don't know if I'm ready to condemn all North American players for not playing enough Champions Queue.
Yeah,
but
I think that was the part that came in a little hot even for me, was like the fact that these. No, I mean, that's part of the reason you had 3 hang up emojis, and part of the reason I pulled you was you came in hot. But yeah, I don't know if I'd say, like, when I see JoJo Pune putting in like some of the most games of like any player ever in North America, I'm like, I kind of have a hard time, you know.
The argument against Champions Queue is Cloud9 doesn't play very much, and they're number 1 in the league right now. Like, that is unfortunately the downside of it. The positive side of it is there are a lot of players that were playing Champions Queue a lot when it came out, and I haven't tracked it as much recently. But those teams where you saw a lot of, like, Golden Guardians for a while was overperforming. Obviously, they had their bad 2 weeks, but when they were overperforming, there was an interesting correlation between that and how much Champions Queue they were playing. So,
ooh, here's a question I have for Jack, since he's in chat. How much is the internal scrim thing still happening? I know that was, like, initially, I think, an idea.
He said earlier that they're playing their internal teams a decent amount. I tried to ask him if they were doing triple blocks, but I don't think he answered that one.
I think he was saying that they were doing some teams do 5+2, and maybe they're doing some of that, which is why they have lowest championship number. It says at least 1 day a week. I don't know. I was just curious about, maybe that's why. I think also the problem is that the Koreans that they've imported are very fresh. They haven't hit their expiration date yet. They haven't eroded.
True.
And so eventually the lack of Champions Queue will catch up to them when their fingers turn all noodly and they can't press their buttons as good.
Yeah, he had said we scrim our internal team a lot, so we don't get to scrim as many other teams as we would like. So I don't know. Maybe it's not triple blocking then. I don't know. But yeah, I'd like to see more. And I'd also like to see players stream it whenever they feel comfortable about it, because I think streaming was a huge part of the success in the LCS early on. And obviously some players are doing it, but I'd like to see more. Razenkin, again, thank you for the call. Anything you want to shout out before we take a quick break?
Yeah, shout out you guys. I love watching Holland League every morning when I go to work. And shout out Alienware, shout out Game Fuel. And I just want to say that I think that if you expect to get good results, you should at least match the work ethic of someone who is succeeding. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Razenkin, for the call, and we'll catch you next time.
Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Train smarter, not harder.
Yeah, that's what we're known for in the league ecosystem, is North America being the smartest region.
We're such big brains. Okay, wait, no. Wait, Mark, we're doing a break.
Oh, we're doing a break?
Yes. I said it at the end of the call, but maybe you missed it. Okay.
I said my thing and I dipped out as like a joke.
Yeah, exactly. You did, and then... Yes. Okay. Hello, everyone. Let's talk about Alienware. Shout out to Alienware. Oh my gosh, I need to... I just recently got it, but we'll have to show it on the next episode because I don't have it in front of me. The X17 has arrived. I have an X17 and an X14 that Alienware has sent my way, and I'm very excited to showcase both of them and the content that I've been doing. I just opened that one up and set it up the other day, but I'm going to do kind of like a fake unboxing at some point in time, and Only you guys that have heard this will know that I've already unboxed it. That's the secret. The other thing that also became available for order now, it wasn't earlier on, I think, when I've talked about it previously, is the new 34-inch OLED curved monitor. This thing is beautiful. It's getting rave reviews. You can go check it out on alienware.com/Travis. Click up to the top, and you'll be able to go to the Alienware website and see the main stuff. But this thing is sick. I believe it's the first monitor of this kind out in the wild at all. Certainly the first one from Alienware, but the idea of a 34 curved OLED gaming monitor is relatively new, and this thing is fantastic. In fact, just go look up the reviews of it if you doubt me, because it's just super cool. I'm getting one very soon that I'll be using as my daily driver, and I can't wait to have that. I've been using 34-inch curved monitors for quite some time, so from Alienware. So the fact that we're going to a new QD OLED gaming monitor from them is really exciting. Anyway, go check it out. It's got NVIDIA G-Sync Ultimate available, and it just looks beautiful. So thank you to Alienware for sponsoring the show and everything we do. Please click the link in the description below if you want to check out their stuff. It always helps us out when you do that. And we will continue to talk about Alienware on future episodes as they have even more announcements in the future. Jack wants a monitor from me. You guys don't have a monitor sponsor right now, Jack? I'm sure you know the folks over at Alienware, and you don't need me to hook you up. But you should see what they can send your way. UCF Xantha, thank you for the Prime. Perchy 99, Shadow Seraph, Blue Jay, Maddie C, Labiri, Cruelis, Avura, Air Hydras. Actually, quick thing, caller just showed up here, but Jack, I am very surprised you guys are not in on the WoW stuff, because I know that you were a huge World of Warcraft player, and now obviously they've got the big WoW races going on right now, and I saw TL got in. So when is C9 getting into all that? Because I know you were really big on doing all of that. Well, I guess we'll have to find out. All right.
Rather than sponsor teams, what if whenever there's like a world force race thing going on, you instead just like had like horse racing, and the big orgs just like bet, like Jack and Steve and all them, and they get to like kick a part of the commit, like the winnings to the org that actually wins. So like they kind of get paid. It's kind of like a sponsorship, but everyone can only bet on one horse.
Yeah. Golden Guardians, then TL, C9 next, I think. All right. Final Nintendo Kid is here. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Davis, California.
Davis, California. What do you want to talk about on the show?
I believe my take was that EG is not going to make playoffs, and that the best contender to take their spot is CLG.
Wow, this is a cold take. Mark, why are you pulling all these freezing takes?
You think it's freezing cold to EG's missing playoffs in favor of CLG?
Let's see, where are they right now? Okay, here's why it's a hot take, because I was on Mark's stream earlier conveniently. You're a little breathy, Final Nintendo, if you can pull the microphone a little bit further back. You're good. I'm glad you're got that good breathing passage going. The reason why it's a cold take is because I was on Mark's stream earlier when somebody said something similar to this, and he pulled up the teams that CLG has to fight over the next 5 weeks, and like I think they have what is almost certainly a 0-2 this weekend. Who are they playing this weekend?
TL? C9 and TL next week.
Okay, yeah. So
they're fucking doomed.
That's tough. Like they just had their 2-0. They need a brace for impact, I guess, on this weekend. And then after that, they have Immortals, which could happen, TSM, which they'll definitely beat, and EG. So I think actually, in your scenario, Final Nintendo, if it becomes true, I think that final day of spring is going to be very spicy because EG and C9 play each other on the final day. So, but go ahead, Nintendo. I know we kind of ran off on this, so go ahead and explain your take a little more.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of based on their strength of schedule and their like most recent win-loss history, I think it's entirely possible that EG will like slide down the standings, even further, I mean, the first round robin was not particularly impressive, and even though they've been able to pick up some wins, it's just been like very kind of middling at times until like Danny can just pop off somehow. Meanwhile, like CLG, just like in the last week, actually even in some of their losses have just shown like that they now have a clear way of getting wins.
Here's the problem. When you mention strength of schedule, EG has an easier strength of schedule over the next 4 matches before they face each other. EG faces Dignitas and 100 Thieves and FlyQuest and
but Travis, here's what you're not forgetting, that the caller's main point is that EG is dog water. And so that's actually a very hard strength of schedule for them. Whereas CLG will probably go 1-1 next week, and then be able to 3-0 the last.
Who are they beating, Mark? Are you going to take another bet? Is this how much hot sauce?
Doesn't it just feel like Cloud9's due for a come down?
I mean, maybe.
A little bit. They
actually,
beat TL.
it's funny you say that.
They're the best team in the league.
It would be a very Cloud9 thing to do to beat TL than lose to CLG, but I don't know.
They did it. They did before.
Yes, many things have happened before, but I think that weekend was a little unusual for Cloud9 for a variety of reasons. Okay. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, so I think the strength of schedule part is a huge problem for this argument. It's just, even if they find a way to win for CLG and make it into playoffs, it's most likely maybe another team that has a tougher strength of schedule remaining. FlyQuest, for example, has to play TL and C9 still. Then they play Golden Guardians, EG, and Immortals. Like, FlyQuest, maybe they drop games. They're actually looking okay, but they're on a 2-game loss streak right now. You're kind of probably looking more at them or Dig to like choke more than EG, just because EG doesn't have that hard of a time left. Dig also has C9, no TL. Oh, they do have both. They play both on the second round robin. So like a couple of the other teams have to play both C9 and TL, not EG. So that's why I think EG is relatively safe.
Caller,
I will say that in the head to head. Sorry to cut you off.
No, go.
I will say in the head to head for CLG and EG, CLG does have a win over EG, and I'm just not really convinced by. I just really am not hot on Inspired. I just never have been, and I don't know. I can't believe that they.
When you say never have been, do you mean even when he was in the LEC and people were praising him?
Yeah, even in the LEC, like he was just like it was just like I always felt like the meta really suited him during the times where he was very hot, like a very selfish play style where he got all the kills and then ran over the game. I think, but like in a very selfish way, where he got a ton of farm, and I don't know, it just never really convinced me that he really was like a player that could do it all.
Didn't you see him run over TSM on the Hecarim this weekend?
Okay, but a lot of them run over TSM.
Yeah,
I know. I was giving you an alley-oop on that one. That's what in the business you call setting up.
Mark, let's broaden the topic out. If CLG was to make it in, who do you think is most likely to get pushed out? Dig or FlyQuest, I assume.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's probably Dig or Fly. I think both them, their schedules are about the same strength. They have to play C9 and TL. Both of them have to play a somewhat respectable third team. Both of them play EG, actually. Is their schedule the exact same then Immortals and Golden Guardians? Dig plays Golden Guardians and then 100 Thieves, actually. So slightly harder for Dignitas. Dignitas have to play the top 4 teams in the league still, actually. FlyQuest notwithstanding. Assuming you think EG is a top 4 team, secretly, on a stealth mission. Which obviously the caller doesn't. But no, I think that there is a non-zero chance that CLG makes it, but they're 2 games back of those other 2 teams, which means they actually have to go 3-0 and beat some of those teams, but they're actually not playing any of them anymore. So they don't have like the ability to go 1-for-1 in one of those. So you're kind of hoping one of them just booms and CLG can catch their spot.
I mean, there are not that many games left, and you have to make up a 2-game gap. So I think that should be pretty tough. So I don't know. You know what? I'm going to say CLG doesn't make it to playoffs. I think they had a good weekend where they.
I think that's the safer bet, honestly.
Yeah. I think that's where I'm going to go with. So sorry, caller, disagree with you. Golden Guardians is more likely to make it into the top 6 than CLG. That is my hot take.
Wow.
NintendoKid, thank you for the call. Anything you want to shout out?
Yeah, shout out to Grubhub. I'm a college student, so really helps out. And also shout out to the UC Davis Illegal Legends Club. Yeah.
Did you if you're going to order Grubhub, make sure you use our code in the next couple of days because it expires on the 16th. But I think it's 5. Let me find it. It's Travis 5. You'll save some money. That's my secret.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Nintendo, for the call, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you.
We didn't really talk about the play of CLG recently. We just kind of talked about strength of schedule for that whole call. I will say CLG is looking better when contracts. The team's biggest problem for the first half was that someone was always feeding. A lot of it was contracts. Then there were times where it was Jenkins, Palafox had some, their bot lane had some. But I think this weekend showed you what it can look like when they're actually not inting. It was Fly and Golden Guardians, who are 2 of the teams that are in that playoff hunt that we're talking about. And it shows that their bot lane's legit. I think they can make team comps that make sense. And then they just need to execute on that and pull back a little bit. So I still like CLG. I still don't feel too bad for being a little hot on them at the start of the year. I like them.
Great. Glad to hear it. They had a good 2-0 weekend, and now you like them.
I just wanted to talk about them a little bit beyond that. Their strength of schedule makes them pretty
Yeah,
fun.
no, that's fair. I mean, I am happy that they got the 2-0 because it would have been really sad if CLG made this big bet on rookie talent instead of going for the mid-level thing they went for the last couple of years, and they just still flub. I also am happy they went 2-0 because as much as I feel bad for some people over at TSM, them going 2-0 and TSM going 0-2 after the Reggie CLG meme is it's just even more funny.
Especially given that Immortals is now below them in the standings, and people were talking about Immortals being CLG 2.0.
Yeah.
And if they get 9th, that's literally what CLG did. So
yes.
Yeah.
Mark, quick question. I know you have 3 people in the waiting room. We
one
have our
is
callers.
not for the Players Association.
Okay.
2 are. So I think we can do the last one quick.
Yeah. Let's do the last one quick. And I told them that we'd be 10 minutes over. They needed 10 minutes, so we're good.
Cool.
All right. Off Mark goes to get the next person. Thank you to Avuro, Aerohydrus, Maddie Chu, Inuber. Oh, Aerohydrus for 2 years. Sick. And then Arjun Senpai. Thank you for the primes. Thank you, everybody who's throwing in the subs. Always appreciate it. Cyberhealer is here. Cyberhealer, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Denver, Colorado.
Denver, Colorado. What do you want to talk about on the show?
That with the 2-0 this week for 100 Thieves, that they are starting to reestablish their identity that they were having last year when they won Summer, and with Closer not picking Lee Sin and Someday playing out of his mind recently, that they should be looked at as a top team in the league.
Oh, so what Mark has done is just created a parade of people who saw a team go 2-0 this weekend and now have decided that they're big believers. CLG now 100T.
I've been a fan since 2018 of the team, so it's good to see them back in form.
Yeah. No, I understand.
I hate to dash your dreams right now, but they were 11K down against Golden Guardians.
Yeah, Golden Guardians was a disaster. I was sitting in the room with my brother.
Was that them reestablishing their play style from last year, going down 11K?
So I feel like in the beginning they didn't have a good start, and then as soon as they, I don't want to use the word executed, but more scaled and played the meta a bit better than Golden Guardians and realized what mistakes Golden Guardians were making, and then they kind of just took the momentum of the win, whatever little was there, into the FlyQuest game, and it really did, I think, in my opinion, improve their play.
Is this a tough time of the year for you because it just gets really, as it starts to warm up, it gets harder and harder to wear the hoodies?
Oh, I always sit in the hoodie.
Thank you for the laugh. Okay.
Thank you for clapping.
Yes, exactly. Please
That was
clap.
funny. That was a good one.
Thank you. Okay, so is 100T back, baby? Mark Zimmerman, after a very middling performance for, quite frankly, the start of the year, was this weekend the beginning of... Really? You think, They lost a Dignitas at Lock-In, and then they've just kind of like hovered around the middle for the most of.
No, that's why I'm agreeing with you. I'm going.
Okay. Sorry.
Like,
yes.
It's hard. I don't want to poo-poo a team after a 2-0. Like, good for you guys. I think Abadaga in the second game in particular looked a lot better on the Vex when he had been someone who had been pretty notably underperforming compared to last year when he came over. And like the first couple of weeks, he was just like smurfing on the league, and then was still pretty big part of their run for the actual title. You know, like this was a bit of a return to form for him, but it was just one game. And that's, I think, what scares me, because it wasn't like they played 2 clean games this weekend. They should have gone 1-1. And so that's why I'm a little hesitant to jump on the board. While I did like the FlyQuest win, I don't love some of their drafts right now. I really didn't like what they did on Red Side versus Golden Guardians, and thought they got appropriately punished for it before Golden Guardians just stopped playing the game correctly.
No,
and then like let them back in. But like, if your 5th pick counter pick Red Side is fucking a losing matchup to then getting like turbo slammed in lane by Licorice to the point where like your team should lose the game, I don't know, man. It felt pretty bad.
I would agree with that.
So that's why like I'm a little hesitant. Like, yes, the 2-0 felt good. I think it'll hopefully give them a bit of momentum. But until I actually see them carry that out week over week, and especially, you know, next week they play EG Immortals, that's good. Then they have C9. Like, if they can go 4-1 to end the split, I feel pretty good about it. I think they need to go basically 4-1 for me to like agree they got it back. IMT, EG, TSM, C9, Dig. I expected a loss to C9. They should beat everyone else. If they go 3-2 and they lose to EG, like, I'm still like, you know, like, what are you, the 4th best team in the league? That's not really championship quality form.
I mean, that's kind of my concern for 100T, is it feels incredibly unlikely. Well, not incredibly unlikely, but like actually incredibly unlikely that they can make it to Houston. Top 3 teams go, and like they were the team that won Summer last year. They've made 0 changes except for they let Tenacity play for 1 game so they could.
God, I can't believe Tenacity tanked them that hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Poor dude.
6-man roster. And so and yet they. I don't know. I mean, I guess they are 1 game ahead of Dig and FlyQuest right now, so maybe it's not as bad as I feel like it is. But it's hard not to just feel like they're in Mark's favorite term, the soup, with Dig, Fly, and EG.
I think the reality is that they're going to make playoffs, and then no matter what happens in playoffs, you can kind of erase the whole regular season if you perform well and make finals or something.
Right.
You know, like, if they do make Houston and then they win a best of 5 in the losers bracket against presumably TL or C9, whoever loses in the upper bracket, you know, like, that's
I mean,
good.
right now, I think they should just be happy to make Houston. That is my take on it. Is like, 100 Thieves fans should just be hoping that they're playing in front of an audience in April, because, well, a big audience in April.
The thing that's still working for them is that there's no other candidate that's clearly better than them.
Yes.
Like, as much as we're down on 100 Thieves, who is better? And you're like, what, Fly, EG?
Yeah, the problem is I think they have less than a 50% chance of making it to Houston right now, because I feel like you could give, you know, you could divide up 60% chance between Dig, FlyQuest, and EG, or even like a fucking, we were just talking about Golden Guardians or CLG making it randomly into playoffs. They get some percentage points too, right? And so like that's the problem I think for 100 Thieves right now, is like they might have the highest percentage of all the teams, but they don't have what's the term?
They have not the majority, they have the plurality.
Yeah, plurality. That's what I was looking for. Thank you. Yeah. So that I think is the challenge for 100 Thieves fans.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily like they really just had 1 good game. Like, we're talking about the 2-0 weekend, but it was really 1 good game and 1 bad game. So
this could be a lot of me just wanting to see them in Houston, because I'm going and I really just want to see them there.
Oh, I'm sorry, man. I hope they get there for your sake.
I hope they do. And me being very happy we didn't draft Lee Sin for the first time in like 3 weeks, and I don't know what the hell we're doing there.
Yeah, well.
So it could be a lot of that, but
thanks.
I feel like good things are coming. But thank you for having me on.
Thanks,
Thank you.
cyberhealer. Catching. Oh, and is there anything you want to shout out?
Shout out to you guys for taking my call. Been a long time fan and stuff. So
Very good.
yeah, and then I always like it when Mark is on the broadcast. Always a good day.
I agree.
Yeah, Mark, he made this big deal, and then I constantly see him on the broadcast. I want to see him less on the broadcast. He's casting, he's on the desk.
Travis?
But let's get Mark on there every day.
Correlation versus causation. Who can say less Mark, less viewership?
Oh, that's true. That is true. We need more Mark.
I don't know. I'm just a simple math man, but
yeah,
that seems pretty 1-to-1 to me.
Yeah. No, it's true. Is it any coincidence that Mark has been on the broadcast less than he has ever, and also the LCS is having their worst viewership ever?
I think so. I think we got to bring Mark back.
Thanks, cyberhealer. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you, guys.
Technically, this week there was more Mark. Right, so there was probably a big bump in viewership, Raz. That's true.
No. This week there was not a big bump in viewership. So.
Oh, shit. No, don't say that then. No.
That works
Move
against
right
you.
along. Where are the PA guys? Where's the PA guys?
Yeah, okay. So let me see how I can do this. Okay, so we're going to change this really quickly. And now we've got both their stuff set up. Nice. Okay, that worked very fluidly. Sorry, podcast listeners. I am changing the overlay right now, and I'm just happy that it's working. Okay, so they should be, at least Phil should be in one of the channels. Do you see him anymore?
Does he have a name? Is it just Phil?
Yeah, it should be Philip Aram. I'm still messing with the overlay, so
I don't see a Philip.
He needs to join a channel. We'll
if he's listening right now, he does. Oh, I see him.
Okay, perfect. You want to pull him in?
Yep.
Okay.
Got one of them.
Nice.
Am I going fishing for a second?
Marty, I think is.
Oh yeah.
Wait, what happened here? My browser source is looking funky. Hi Phil, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Trying to fix the overlay. So Marty is running. You said about 10 minutes or so late.
Yeah, I think he was picking up a kid.
Okay. Presumably his child. Okay.
We can.
Let's.
He's very intrepid.
Let's grab you into this call. So I'm going to call you on Skype.
I'm ready.
Please mute as soon as you join.
Mute Skype. Got it.
Yeah. Okay. I've got them. So you should get a call now. Is that coming through? There you are. Hello.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
There I am.
And you muted. Thank you. All right.
We're on top of
it. Okay, we're gonna put you in, and we'll just start without. We'll start without Marty. He can fill things in as he gets here. But welcome to the show.
Lighting.
Phil, do you want to explain? Do you want to introduce yourself and what you do? I know I've done an interview with you previously, but folks might have missed it.
Yeah, I'm Phil. I'm the executive director of the League of Legends Players Association. I started back in May of last year, so I'm still a little less than a year in. But yeah, my job is to advocate for players and try and get them the best conditions they can. I launched a big new project just a few days ago, and you were kind enough to bring me on air so that I can stump for what we're doing.
Nice. Well, maybe what we should do is wait until Marty gets here to talk about the announcement that you guys made. And maybe what we'll do is we'll take a call that's unrelated to the announcement, but is related to the Players Association while we wait for Marty to get here. Does that work for you, Mark? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I have a call that I think is pretty good to field to start.
Okay, sounds good. You want to go grab him? So welcome to the show, Phil. For those that don't know, Phil, you ran EG for a while, right?
I did. I spent 6 years at EG before moving on to the Players Association and worked in politics and tech startups prior to that. But yeah, I worked at EG for a long time, managed players at first, helped negotiate for some players to become owners of EG, including myself. Then I was an owner. Then I went out on the long search to get us money to keep running and found us a buyer in Peak 6, worked for them for a while, and then decided I wanted to try something new.
Nice. So I'm just establishing that so that people who are like, who is this guy? Mark wanted to call you a suit. But Yeah, I would not describe you as a suit
disappointed
given
there's
your
no collar, shirt, tie combo.
yeah. Given your
did-
esports time, I feel like you're
I
less
did-
of a suit.
I used to wear a lot of suits in my EG management days when I worked with Charlie Yang. He was a big suit guy. And frankly, in the early days, it was like pretty useful. Like suits were like a hack you could get anywhere because if you were wearing a suit at an esports event, people would like, you could go past security without a badge because they're like, there's no one else here who's doing this, so you must be important. And you just got to do whatever you want. It was good.
But you're not advocating anyone try this now because things have changed.
Absolutely not. Stay away from our players unless they've asked for you to come close.
Okay. All right, very good. Well, our first caller is here. Slushie, where are you calling from?
Indiana.
Indiana.
We're in Indiana.
Welcome to the...
Pendleton.
Pendleton. Okay, don't know where that is.
All right.
It's somewhat middle.
Slushie, what do you want to talk about on the show?
My take is that 100 T's Tenacity experiment has failed, and now he's kind of resting in a contract prison, lowering the quality of the league, and also hurting Tenacity's career.
Okay, so Tenacity is stuck in contract prison, and I assume you think the Players Association should do something about this, or I don't know if you had a way to tie this into the Players Association. Otherwise, Mark and I can do it for you.
Yeah, we will find a way to shoehorn this in.
That's all right. You guys take it where you want to go, and I'll swing in wherever you want.
I really didn't have any definite way to tie it into the Players Association.
No, you do.
But
the way that you were going to is by saying that you're worried about how players end up in academy jail or contract prison, and you feel like this is an issue and that it's something that the Players Association should be concerned about. And so let me first throw to Mark to ask, is Tenacity in contract prison, or what do you think of this 6-man roster failure type thing?
Well, I think it's too early to call it a failure. Just wait until playoffs when Sunday's not cutting it and they bring Tenacity in and he rallies the team to make finals. Then you'll be eating your words. But assuming that doesn't happen, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he is specifically in contract jail, but there's been a lot of players over the years who seem to be performing in academy. There seems to be positions where people are not performing in the LCS in the same role, and somehow those guys just somehow don't end up on that team. And so there's probably something going on there contractually that I don't have the insight on, but 1 + 1 = 2 sometimes,
Yeah. Where's Kenvy? Speaking of 100T Academy players, it's a good question.
Couldn't tell you.
I could tell you. In Academy prison. No. Okay. Phil. So on the topic of players in Academy and big buyouts and teams deciding to just hold players and wait for somebody to pay the buyout rather than letting them have the chance that they so desperately desire more than anything else. Is this something that you guys talk about and think about at the Players Association?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. I forgot the guy's name from Indiana, but guy from Indiana.
Slushie.
I
You can look at
appreciate the
Discord.
question.
That's the cheat.
Slushie. Okay.
Yes.
I gotta go back to Discord. I got a Skype call up. I had to reinstall Skype.
You only
for
have one monitor?
No, I have 3, but
Okay, so you can put
has to stay
Skype on
steered from the
one,
camera.
Discord on the other.
Because if I'm looking away, I can't be looking over here. You'll know that I'm not paying attention. So.
Phil.
I just openly do that. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think of contract prison?
What do I think? Well, we think a lot. I meet with the academy and amateur folks at Riot every 2 weeks. We actually meet on Friday this week. And since I came on, we've talked really regularly about, how do we deal with players getting kind of stuck in 3-year contracts in academy when, there's a clear understanding that they have the talent to play at the LCS level, but they're sort of being held back by a team that's, maybe not genuinely trying to bring them up in their own system. Like maybe they know they don't have a lot of reason to run them on their LCS team because of whatever their roster is, but they also want to hold them for a big buyout instead of letting them move on to another team. So, some of the proposals we had were to kind of get rid of this contract jail situation that are still out, but are, I think, currently being stalled up by the global team, if I'm being fully honest, who have kind of final say on a lot of rules that we're dealing with a little bit in the dark. But, our proposal was if a player's been on the same team under contract for 3 splits in academy, then they should become an immediate restricted free agent so that another team should be able to come in, make an offer to that team to say, we want to pay this player, a LCS salary to bring them up. And if you're holding them in academy for a year and a half, you can match and pay them an LCS salary to keep them in academy if you really want them, or you can accept sort of a fixed term buyout effectively. I think that would be a pretty good solution. It would give teams a window to develop talent. And if the talent was clearly of LCS caliber, then there would be a pathway for them to get that realized.
I think the point about the global side of the environment or ecosystem, whatever you want to call it, is something that probably hampers things more than fans and even myself think about sometimes, because I know at some point someone's going to talk about a CBA here or something, unionizing and whatnot, and of course that leads to like salary caps and like all these kinds of things potentially, but then it gets extra sticky when there's this whole other global side to the esport that how exactly all that functions. So is that something that like long term will continue to be? You said it's a sticking point right now, and this isn't even like the craziest thing that you guys could push for. So like, is there a way that like that you can build a bridge to make things easier to incorporate an NA without stepping on global toes?
Well, and just for anybody who doesn't understand, unlike the three of us who have pretty good understandings of Riot politics and all that stuff, the global team, there's a separate team that basically administers like LoL esports on a global level, and so they have a lot of decision making around how rule sets go around contracts and all that stuff, because a change to the contracts in the LPL could echo out into how available those players are, for instance, for getting picked up in the LCS and all over the place. And so that's what's happening here, is that it sounds like from Phil, it's not necessarily a thing where like the North America commissioner, for instance, has an issue with this idea, or the academy folks. It's more something where the global side of Riot is, I guess, holding up the change.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think we've had some frustrations we've worked with on our local side, which is that, we advocate for players. Yes, we advocate for LCS players, but, our advocacy is not a zero-sum game. The work that we do should, in many cases, have a positive impact on players around the world. We are hopeful that our work raises all sails in that way. The global team has a policy historically of not talking to, individual teams or players. I think there's a natural understanding that they have a bias towards English-speaking players because the global team is primarily English-speaking. So there's some understandable sort of like barriers they put in there, but we really don't have a natural pathway to talk with them historically. That's something that we're understanding is potentially changing in the near future. We're really hopeful it will. But also the global rule index is not public, so we don't no one gets to see what the global rules are. So it's kind of an awkward process where we work with the LCS team. We come to ideas that we think are actually good, and then they have to run it up the ladder to global, and then we kind of both find out whether or not global is going to put a blocker on it, and we really end up having to rely on the LCS team to advocate for our positions to global team if global's not into it. And it's hard as someone who likes to talk and thinks he can convince people of things a time or two. Like it feels pretty bad to not be able to go and do my advocacy work directly to people who are making decisions. So it's something that we're working on with Riot, and we're still hopeful is going to be resolved, because we think we got some really good policies and really good ideas that could help to improve not just the LCS ecosystem, but a lot of ecosystems, and create better pathways for players while still making teams more competitive and have better parity. So we're hopeful that we're going to make progress on that, but it is it's definitely a slow down point for us on a bunch of stuff lately.
Yeah, that is pretty disappointing to know that there's kind of like a separate higher level of rules and restrictions on League of Legends esports that is not necessarily transparent because of the way the global stuff operates.
Yeah, and it's it's public in Valorant. Their kind of global rules are, so it's not a consistent thing at Riot. So we expect this to be something that'll change in the near future, which is why we haven't really pushed hard on it in a big way. But it is a thing that's slowing us up right now. Hard to make policy in a vacuum, not knowing that you're already breaking some rule along the way. So.
Gotcha. All right.
I can imagine that being frustrating.
Staying very calm.
Mark, I don't know. I'm going to work on getting Marty in, so I don't know if you have any other questions on this topic or want to talk to Phil.
We can also potentially pull another caller if you want, because I feel like I don't know, Slushie, do you feel like that answered your question on the contract hells, contract prison thing that players can end up in?
Yeah, someone answered it, but I still think Tenacity is a little bit more unique in the fact that he is not in academy. He's not really in LCS. Only played the one locking game, and now he's kind of just disappeared in a sense. So he's kind of like not even building a career, not really hurting a career. He's just kind of stagnant.
I think on that point, I can ask a follow-up question as well. Contracts, some of them when I was playing in structure was that you had some incentive, like you had potentially more money based off amount of games you played in, whether that be an academy or LCS, that could, like, that rate could fluctuate based off the league. Is that something that's still in the contracts right now? And like, is that something that if a player is in Tenacity's situation where they're playing no games on stage, it seems, is that protected somehow that he's not in one of these contracts where like, oh, I'm getting screwed over because I can't make money now because I am not playing games anywhere?
Yeah, so he definitely couldn't be being paid zero. He's an employee in the state of California, so they're required to pay him California federal minimum or California
But he could be
minimum.
paying like academy minimum versus LCS.
Yeah,
minimum.
I mean, it is certainly possible, and even if I did know the specifics of Tenacity's contract, if you were in the database, I would not be able to speak to the specifics of it. But as I'll speak in hypotheticals, so it is possible that a player would have a contract that says that they have one salary in the LCS and one salary in Academy. If a player is not playing in the LCS, I'm sure the team would interpret that as potentially saying that they are an Academy sub now instead of an LCS sub. I'm not sure if they'd make any public announcements of that otherwise, but presumably a player in that situation is most likely making whatever the base of their salary is for whichever LCS or Academy they're considered in right now, would be my presumption. If not, and you're Tenacity and you're listening in, please message me.
Papa Smithy
don't worry,
in the
Papa
chat.
Smithy's listening and he messaged.
Okay,
Papa Smithy says Tenacity is being paid his full LCS salary. Please, no fake news.
Thank you, Papa Smithy.
There you go.
Appreciate it.
Yes, unless Papa Smithy's lying, in which case Tenacity should still reach
real
out
news.
to Phil. Yes, exactly.
Okay, I'm gonna go on Tenacity's Twitter. What's the last thing he tweeted?
Okay, very good. Either way, no, I think I appreciate you raising the topic, Slushie. How many games did Tenacity play? And did he only play in lock-in, if I recall?
He played one game in lock-in.
Yeah, to the one.
Oh God, it's gotta be
been 59 days.
It's gotta be so rough. Like, I think TSM and Cloud9 and all the drama that went along with that stuff, I think has probably made people not notice that, like, it is kind of wild. The 100T announced a 6-man roster. They played one of the players for one game, and then that's been it. So, I don't know. Probably something I should be trying to get an interview with Papa Smithy or somebody about. Maybe the coaching staff.
Also, can I give a shout out to Papa Smithy? This guy is in the chat in every interview I'm in. I don't know if he is just on all the time in all the spaces, but this guy's plugged in.
He's worried about what you're going to say, Phil. Just like this, he was ready to go.
It's actually a team of people who manage his Twitch account. That could be Papa. That could be,
It's actually a team of people that manage his
Tenacity,
brand.
is that you?
Yeah. That's what they're paying him for, is he's managing the Papa Smithy account. Okay, Slushie, thank you for the call. Anything you want to shout out before we introduce our new guest?
No, not really. Just my girlfriend and my 2 kids. Love you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Slushie. Catch you later. Have a good one.
All right, you too.
All right, so we have stealth added Marty to the show. Marty, you can unmute on Discord now.
That was very stealthy, Travis. I like how you resized me there. Like
can you mute on Skype as well? Because we're getting you out of 2 sources right now. Yeah. Oh, now you're muted on both. There's definitely a way to mute exclusively in Skype and not.
There now, does it work?
Yes. Perfect. Okay, fantastic. Okay, yes, we stealthily added you to the show. Sorry, I had to cut you off there for a second. Do you want?
That's okay. I said I enjoyed how you stealth resized me during the broadcast.
Yes. Everything. It's a very advanced production here. Marty, you the last time I interviewed you, you were running an esports team called Splice. How is that team doing these days?
Well, it's called Mad Lions now, and they won a couple of championships last year, so I think pretty good actually.
Nice. All right. No. Setting all that stuff aside, do you want to explain what you do in the esports space now?
Yeah, so I joined a company called One Team Partners 16 months ago, and One Team was only at the time about 9 months old. It was formed by the NFLPA, the MLBPA, and then funded by a private equity company called Redbird. And you might know Redbird because they own the XFL, they own some soccer clubs. They're really deep in the sports space as far as funding. And the idea was that players associations do a pretty solid job of monetizing their group rights, but there was more opportunity because their main focus is, of course, to take care of players, right? Player issues, take care of players. And so what if there was a commercialization engine that could focus on maximizing for them so they had plenty of money to both run the PA and to put back in the pockets of players? And I took a job leading the esports efforts over at the company after meeting their head of gaming, who's a longtime games industry veteran, and talked about what we could do in esports. And what drew me in was thinking, I bet we can do the same thing for esports players that they're already doing so well for traditional sports athletes. And here we are 16 months later, 15 months after my first talk with Darshan, December of 2020, and we're going to start doing just that.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, now that we've got the basis on that, Phil, maybe you can help explain to the audience a little bit what it means whenever you guys are talking about player rights and monetizing and sort of how all this stuff works, because I think there's a lot of people that might be confused about this.
The quick glaze over. Yeah. So basically, we at the PA, when I took this job, we had money in the bank from the previous funding from Riot that was a no longer ongoing relationship, but which had caused a lot of people a lot of consternation, saying, how can a PA for players be funded by the developer? This is clearly conflict of interest. You know, who are they really working for? Obvious problems. So when I came on, we basically had an end date. You know, Darshan. Hello?
Oh, yeah. We lost you just for a second.
Still there? Okay.
Yeah. I think the video dropped out.
My Skype just closed.
Yeah, it's just Skype being terrible. I don't know why we use Skype anymore.
Oh my god!
Last people in America, I'm confident. You know they
invented
really enjoy the looks on your face right now.
You know a lot about fucking running the LCS Players Association. What do you know about NDI? Okay, do you have any good NDI feeds for exports?
I love doing this.
Mark gets me so annoyed. Okay. You know what we should just do? We should just use Discord like everyone says, and then we'll just leak conversations like Peter did the very first time he did his fucking show on Discord. Anyway, Phil, go. Right. You were saying.
So, when I joined and I talked to Darshan, one of the first things we did before I said yes was, let's find out how long I can do this job before we run out of money. And so we mapped that out, and then one of my missions coming in, aside from proving that the PA is of value and can do things for players and really show meaning, was to also figure out how, if we do, number one, how we then transition into not dying out because we have no money. So the long and the short of it is group rights is the solution to that. It's what's used in every players association in North America in order to fund their PA and also to protect the group rights of their players and put money back in players' pockets. Group rights are the kinds.
What are group rights?
What are group rights? I'm so glad you asked, Travis. Group rights are when a group of players appears in any commercial setting. So for us, it's 4. PAs kind of range from 4, 5, 6, depends on the league and the situation. But ours is 4. They appear in a commercial setting, like let's say trading cards, where a bunch of players are all participating. Every single player shows up in a trading card on Tops or whatever, and it has their information, it has their jersey, and it has their face and their name and stats and all that. That is a group rights deal. So to get all the players in the NFL to do that trading card deal, they go through the Players Association and their sales partner. In our case, in many cases, one team, and they are the ones who negotiate that. The players then make some money, and they also go do a deal to get the team licenses and the league licenses, so they get money too. So that's what group rights kind of are at their most basic. But the whole foundation of group rights deals were put together in the 60s with baseball. It's how the first real player association turned into a really powerful union in American sports. And the other players associations have followed suit after that, using the same group rights model in order to fund themselves and give themselves the capacity to go into collective bargaining and be robust unions.
Can I jump off of Phil's point? Just I want to add a piece of color. When we talk about the other marks, not to be confused with this marks, that's my bad dad joke for the night. I can't help it. They're like, let's take trading cards, right? So Panini has a deal with the NFL right now, and they have a deal with the NFLPA, and they make trading cards. And so they do those two deals so that they can put both the player's name, image, and likeness, or NIL, which is the going term, as well as the marks of the teams, the league, and that kind of stuff. So there are two separate deals that are done here. Traditionally, they're dual license products, we say. There are some products that can be done with a single license, and a great example is So Rare out there makes a fantasy game. And they first did a deal with just the soccer players, right? They didn't go get the teams. It was just the soccer players. Now the teams are coming on later after they decided it was a good product and they wanted to join on because it's good revenue. But I want to kind of have the distinction of two licenses, and we're really focused on the player side, but that will provide opportunities to the team and league to also license alongside us.
So one of the things that you had mentioned to me, Phil, along on the side, you guys are talking about trading cards, but Phil, I think you mentioned like Madden or 2K or these types of games that have to have the players in them. Those also kind of go through this method similarly?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you ever played Madden, on the front cover of Madden is a little emblem in the bottom that says NFLPA on it, which is a showing that they have licensed the rights from the PA to use player likeness in the game. So that's a very core part. And there are some video games in history where, there's almost every player joins the group license, from Tom Brady down to the minimum salary player. I think one of the only real cases that's in recent memory or history when someone didn't join the group license was Barry Bonds. And the only reason I knew this growing up was because I played MLB games, and Barry Bonds just showed up as like player number, and his name wasn't in there. And it was like, I didn't, it like broke my world when I was 13.
Yeah, I remember.
So theoretically, I was just going to say, if they wanted to make a game that was like Captain Flowers LCS 2023, you guys this group would approach you guys and say, hey, we want to do a licensing deal for all the players in the LCS. And then they would also need to go do a licensing deal with all the teams to get the rights for all the teams. And so there's a world here where if they wanted to also have all these players playing on like Dignitas and CLG, etc. And so there's a world here where there's like revenue generating opportunities both for the players and for the teams.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I want to mention that like part of our due diligence in coming to the point where we did this deal was, is there a market, right? Because I believe there was a market, but we had to go out and talk to our partners, and we talked to partners in numerous different categories to understand not LCSPA, but in general esports and what the opportunity was. And what we heard was a resounding yes. The challenge was they're not going to go collect these rights, right? And the comparison is college sports right now, right? Like college NIL is now being able to be monetized, but no one's going to go out and get all the football players or all the NBA players, et cetera. Instead, when we say, hey, we announced a deal we did, for example, with Panini for trading cards in college, and that said, we'll go get the players for you, and then you only have to do a deal with one party, with just one team, and it's a big deal for them. Like these trading card companies or video game companies or whatever, they just want to do a single deal with players, a single deal with a league if there is one, and go make a product. They're not going to go collect 1,000 players, 100 players, whatever the number is.
So one of the faults I have for this is obviously the HASC gets licensed to then use the player's name, image, likeness. For right now in League, there are third-party things that do that, but obviously don't have a deal with you guys, I assume, yet. Things like Sleeper had a fantasy app, and I assume there's probably a bunch of things that I'm not aware of. Is it the kind of thing where if they don't work with the Players Association, then you tell them, hey, you can't make this, otherwise there's like legal repercussions?
You go sue their ass.
Sue their ass? Or like, how does it work to get like, if you're like some nobody with a website and you just want to make a fun game, like you're not going to go after them, but if there's like, oh, Sleeper's owned by this company, like how does all this work with like the current League ecosystem now that this is in place?
Yeah, and what's interesting, Mark, is that we obviously deal with the same thing with all of our other PAs. So maybe I should mention who we represent. So we represent, I mentioned we're owned by the MLBPA and the NFLPA, but we also represent the WNBPA, the MLSPA, the U.S. Women's National Soccer Team PA, and the U.S. Rugby PA. So we have a very difference in sizes, you can imagine, right? The size of the WNBPA is different drastically from the NFLPA. And the ultimate goal is always to do what's best for the players. And so there'll be times where we're making a decision with the PA, right? Like I say one team isn't really making a decision in that circumstance. One team and the PA is working together to decide what's the best move for the players long term. And there's no like clear line that we always do this. Our managing director, who was president of the NFL Players Inc., MLB Players Inc., which is the commercial arm of the MLBPA, and is general counsel there for many, many years, talks about how there's lots of nuance here, right? So like even with the MLBPA, which is what, like 60 years old, I think you said, Phil, is the age. There's still nuance all the time in when they're choosing to chase certain things or allow certain licenses, etc. And I think that we can't ever say always this, always that, but I'll say it as close to as whatever's in the best interest of the players.
Cool.
We're very litigious-minded, Marty. I don't know if we talked about this, but sue everyone. every single motherfucker that uses.
I'll let Tim know.
Tim Seva Houston is sweating.
Yeah. Oracle's
Sweating
Elixir.
He's about to blow up my DMs immediately.
Yeah, that's great.
In jest, folks, in jest. Marty was very right.
Okay. Well, there is, before we get into calls, there was one thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, which was something I noticed this afternoon. So, Marty, I will direct this question to you, Marty, and I guess Phil chime in as well. But very funny, there's an interesting situation here where a member of the Players Association Board of Directors is also a member of, or also works full-time at one team. This happened recently. And she came in as part of an acquisition of a company that was, I believe, owned and operated by Bryce Blum, who is like the big lawyer for all of the medium lawyer for all of the different LCS teams that are out there.
Wow, you called him medium. That's something. I like that.
Kind of on the LCS side. I felt big lawyer was building him out too much. And so
I think Bryce could appreciate that.
Yeah. So to me, I looked at this and I'm like, okay, this feels really weird. Like, not only is it a situation where you have somebody on the board of directors from the PA who was working full time at the company that the PA just did a deal with, but also you have a situation where that person came in and part of their team, you guys acquired this team that includes the guy who's representing all the teams, the LCS teams. There's a lot of one team LCS teams, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I know the word team throws us off here.
Yes. But like this, I think, is the type of thing that would raise a lot of eyebrows. And when I noticed it, I was like, okay, this seems complicated and weird and a little conflict of interesty. So how are you guys managing this? Because that, I think, that's about as close as you can get in some ways to the teams, right? Is by having somebody who represents them working for you guys.
Sure, yeah, and I'll walk you through kind of the timeline here. So as I mentioned, Darshan and I had our first call in 2020 December. Myself, Eric Winston, who's our chief partnerships officer and was president of the NFLPA for a very long time, and just started to explore things. This is pre-Phil, pre-bringing on Laura Gabba-Flanagan, which is who you're referring to, and Bryce Blum, et cetera. And we began to explore, but recognized that until there was a new executive director, it was going to be difficult to move a deal, especially because the season started shortly after that, of course, right? And in the meantime, we kept in touch. We actually offered to help in the search for an executive director because we have a lot of experience there. And in the meantime, I did end up leading the acquisition of Theorycraft, mainly because we needed marketing for games, creative services, so non-esports related. So both Lauren and Nathan, who are two of the partners, now work full-time in our company, and they work on marketing for all of our games we make. So Madden and with Konami, we make eFootball, et cetera, and so they're working in a separate part of the company. Once we did start in earnest to work on this deal, so Phil and I, we had to entirely recuse Lauren from everything. She wasn't involved in any calls, any negotiations, and that I won't speak for Phil, but I can say I happen to know this. She wasn't even on any of the board calls because she had to be fully recused on both sides. So we took a wall that was very, very firm there. As far as Bryce goes, I should mention Bryce does not work full-time for us. He's actually in a consulting arrangement because he, of course, has his full-time legal capacity. So both Lauren and Nathan came in full-time, but Bryce is there for when I need to tap him, right? Hey, I have an idea, Bryce. I want to run this by you. And we spent some time on the phone. But Bryce literally had no idea this deal existed until very recently, long after we'd gotten deep down the consummation for very obvious reasons. And I informed Bryce when I said, look, I know this is going to affect you because people are going to go, well, that's weird, Bryce. Maybe even your clients are going to say, well, that's weird, Bryce. But this isn't the first time in his career he's had to deal with being on two sides of the table as a consultant and as a lawyer. And so, he has never been any part of it at any point. Of course, you could say, Marty, of course you can say that. We still think you're full of shit. Well, I can only tell you what I know is true, and you can choose to believe me or not. But I can tell you that the company I work for, it's owned by players, right? And that's a big part of what drew me to the company. And so it's always focused on best interest of players, period.
Yes. Okay, cool. Glad we were able to address that and learn about that. I know some people on Twitch chat, their eyes have been glazing over. Folks, this is what it looks like whenever we have to like do our due diligence and checking it on stuff. People are like, but what? How does this is? You
Travis,
guys want people to ask tough questions.
Boring due diligence questions. Nobody wants to hear them.
There's a limit to the due diligence I think you need to do. I think that's one that maybe
this is within that, even if people don't understand it. We'll grab a caller. Mark is off to grab him. Shout out to some subs. Thank you to Epsilon, Prometheus, Hey It's Hotshot, All the Dog, Jimmy Columbine, Maury Wakes, CJ Foxy, Arjun Senpai, and Rico Suave is here. Rico Suave, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from North Shell, Westchester.
From Westchester. Did you move?
Yeah, moved. Got married. Got a wife now.
Congratulations.
Let's go.
Congratulations.
All right, that's awesome.
Thank you. So you should bring Hotline Love back.
Yes. That we made that happen on that ill-advised show. The good thing to come out of it. Anyway, let's talk about this. So, what are you calling in for, Rico?
I'm calling in to talk about when the PA does unionize, what will they do to handle player contracts, and will they put a salary cap on teams? I'm not sure if you guys have looked into the history of some players being screwed over. One of them being Phoenix. Literally was giving like 2-3 days before the end of free agency to find a team and didn't have enough time. And you also had certain certain players put in like quote unquote contract hell where they couldn't get out of a team because of a buyout deal.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Rico Suave. I like your name. Congratulations on the marriage and the move. I think one thing really important to point out, we talked about the group rights deal. The group rights deal is a first and really pivotal step towards being able to unionize. We are not a union, right? We are a nonprofit trade association as it stands today. It's, it costs a lot of money to unionize, especially in sports. You have to have a lot of lawyers and a lot of people to work through very complex bargaining situations, and you're basically redesigning the league in many ways because you're agreeing on all the terms of how the players will interact in the league. And that includes things like buyouts, contract jails, how free agency works, when players can be dropped, when they can be added. So, we've taken the first big step, having an independent association that's able to be advocate for players and also be able to do the lifting if unionization comes. We may have some questions later on about some of the legal complications there. I had a call with Riot today where we were some very frank conversations on both sides where we both basically said neither of us really know how to do this and we're going to keep trying to figure out what it looks like. So there's a lot of stuff there's a lot of there before we get there. But yeah, if we get to unionization, the things that we can do are, it's everything under the sun that you see in traditional sports, whether it be, raising minimum salaries, ensuring guaranteed contracts like are in the NBA, instituting a draft could be on the table. And of course, we believe we believe team owners would certainly be looking for something like a salary cap potentially. It's not something that we would impose on them most likely. Our goal is to ensure our players are fairly compensated, and we think that the fair market value of a player is what decides that, and not an artificial cap on what they're earning. But that would certainly be something that would be something that owners would likely like to put on the table. So until we get there, though, we don't know anything for sure. But yeah, a whole lot of things that could be tackled, and a lot of good that can be done for players.
Yeah, it's Rico. I'm curious why. You mentioned would they institute a salary cap? That's not something that the LCS Players Association would want, right? Or the LCS Players Union in this situation, because that just takes players or money out of the pockets of the players. It's something the owners would want as a means of negotiating with the teams. Like, okay, we'll allow this, but we don't want to have to pay you more than X per team or something.
Yeah, but if you do decide to put a salary cap, then teams will have to strategically try to mix and shuffle. I want these certain players. We'll give them this amount, and then kind of fill in and kind of give lower tier teams a better chance to compete with the higher teams.
Well, this kind of allows me to bounce off of this, Phil. I have long stood the stance that it is not I am not a union buster. However, this is the
sounded different on Twitter earlier.
Yes, I know, as a joke. This is the rare exception where I feel like it is almost not in it is not worth it, especially for the players on the high end, to try to unionize, because once they unionize, then there can be collective bargaining, and the teams do not want to be paying the salaries that they are paying right now. And so what you would almost certainly see is player salaries getting slashed a ton, because in most players unions and most collective bargains, to my limited understanding of it, they're getting a percentage of the revenue of the league. And right now, I think there's a good chance that a lot of these players are making like that the players right now, the total player income represents larger than like 50% of the income of the league, just in terms of how much people are being paid. So I'm curious what you think of all this as we're talking about salary caps and unionization.
Yeah, I think there was probably a time when I subscribed to sort of that conventional wisdom. I think it sells short the economics of League of Legends and of esports. We're not in the same boat as a traditional sport that's been around for 20 or 30 years and has a fully established economic model. We are dealing with a lot of companies that are in startup mode still, serving, as a bridge between sports and tech companies who have active business models that involve, strategically spending more money than they make in order to position themselves to be the Yankees or the Red Sox or the Cowboys or the Lakers of the future esports that exist, in 10 or 20 years. That's an active business model from a lot of teams, and that is what has dictated the market in the industry. Now, people talk about sustainability. There's still a lot of work to be done on increasing the revenue side of the business, but frankly speaking, I don't think that a one-to-one mapping of the sports revenue model splitting system is one that makes sense here. You also have a developer who gets a percentage of revenues as well off of deals that come in. So there's a few things that kind of have to come to the table, but there are gains to be made for players and unionizing, no doubt. I mean, we hear constantly on the subreddit and myself with our players about situations like contract jails, situations like players signing a 3-year deal but only having a 2-week term without cause notice. So the team owns you and can send you anywhere they want for 3 years, but they can send you to the doormat on 2 weeks notice and not owe anything after. Those are really inequitable terms and wildly I think almost unconscionable deal terms for sports. So, we think that those are things where players can gain a lot. IP rights, our work here on group rights is only the beginning of really defining what players own for themselves in terms of their name, image, and likeness. And, in traditional sports, a player has so much more capacity to monetize themselves than many players do in esports teams. So, the list again goes on and on for places where players have to gain, and the salary cap is certainly a consideration of weight that every player is going to have to make when deciding if they want to collectively bargain and unionize. And we'll have to do some cold hard calculus with our players to determine if that risk is worth the reward of all the other gains possible.
Yeah.
I'd like to throw something in here too, Travis.
Sure.
When it's easy to point to salary, right? Especially in esports today, that's the biggest factor a lot of times is how much money can you pay me, closely related to how well can the team win, right? Those are probably the two number one factors people are going to sign. And, traditional sports, there's a lot more going into it. What city are you in? Who else am I going to play with? What kind of other terms are built in there, revenue shares, all kinds of things like that. And we don't have a lot of those complexities yet, though some of them have been creeping in and they'll come over time because bigger players can demand more. But how about a year ago when the Call of Duty League had their World Championship and the next day said, oh, by the way, we're moving from 5 players per team to 4 players per team. And the players read about it on social media. And immediately, one player from every team lost his job without ever having a seat at the table. That affects the high-paid players and the low-paid players. And I think that, I'm not trying to call out Activision here or call out the league. I mean,
call them out.
But what I mean though is this is pretty common in esports today. I mean, I've been on the other side of the bargaining table, right? I was a team owner for a very long time. We're very separate today, right? The players and the teams / league. And so the players don't have a seat at the table for those conversations. When we're deciding on format of the league, when we're deciding about making changes to the way the structure of the league works, teams get to be part of that conversation, right? And players aren't today. So, there is a lot more that goes into it when you think of player welfare than just the salary. And I know that, again, we talk about glazing over, you mentioned, that'll make players' eyes glaze over. And Eric Winston would even tell you that with NFL players, right? Talk to them about safety, despite the fact that they have a contact sport, and their eyes will glaze over. But talk to them about the payday, and it's a very different conversation. But the truth is, it impacts more people than we want to talk about, right? Like there's a heavy impact in these nuances Phil's talking about in contracts, and what the power that the league holds to make changes carte blanche without the players' input, for example.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
To
we have to wrap it up really quick, Phil.
Oh no. Okay. I was going to go for another 5 minutes.
No. If you have a short version, we have an ad and 2 calls to take. So.
No. And one call. I will say it's one call because there's been a bit of a double dip in topics.
Okay, cool. Well, then go ahead, Phil. You have 5 minutes.
Yeah, I already lost it. Go.
You don't have anything. If there's anything you want to build, I wasn't trying to cut you off completely.
We've had so much banter since my 5-minute request that it's completely gone now.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Follow up question.
Really quickly.
All right. So, what would be like your ace in your sleeve? Like, if the LCS team don't want to comply with you guys, what are you going to do? Like, as you recently heard, baseball union pretty much pulled themselves out and delayed the season. What do you have?
Incorrect. First off, baseball was a lockout, not a strike. That means that the team owners decided to kick the players out and tell them, don't show up to work because there's no work for you until you guys give us more money. That is what happened there. So let's remember that. But the ace in the sleeve for labor is always going to be a strike. Absolutely. When I've ever asked about this, I always say the same thing. Like, of course, we keep that on the table. It's up to players. Any employee has the right to withhold services if they don't believe that they're being paid an equitable way or in a contract that is fair and safe. So, absolutely, that's always the ace in the hole for labor. It's a very simple playbook. It's, you negotiate, and if push comes to shove and people don't believe that this deal is worth them being being in the business, then they hold out through strike. It's a really core part. Hey, look.
No, don't address it. We don't address it.
Very, very serious talk and then a kid.
Yeah. I appreciate that. We need that mix. But yeah, I mean, it's the core thing. You never want to get there, and you do everything you can to collaborate and find a ground. At the end of the day, players want to play. They want to compete. Everybody wants the league to happen because that's how everybody is going to, make money and keep their livelihoods. But you also have to be principled and understand that sometimes you have to take a stand for what's most important.
Yeah. Hey, Rico, thanks so much for the call. Anything that you want to shout out before we say goodbye?
Shout out to my wife, Grubhub, Alienware, Game Fuel, and FlightQuest for being a humble org. Have a good night, guys.
Thanks so much for the call.
Nice speaking to you.
Yeah.
Did he get paid for that?
No, Phil, you must not watch Hotline League. So my callers, or our callers, are really great, like about shouting out the sponsors for the show on the way out, and it is part of the reason why Hotline League is the cash cow. No, you think you're looking at Marty as if he's the guy that's going to be able to bring you all the commercial value. Bring
Rico Suave back in. We're unionizing you, Rico Suave, right now.
Viewers.
Oh, he's here.
The viewers are going to unionize?
No,
well, I want you to know there's
Rico,
a ton of
value.
There's a ton of viewers that never get selected that would happily take these call jobs, Phil, and call it every week.
We will lock him out so fast you won't believe.
We're going to strike, not lock him out. But
no, we're locking out.
Together, Rico.
You can't strike on us. We're locking your callers out.
Yes. Pay.
Yes. We're going to put everything behind a dono wall. We're dono walling our viewers from now on. If you want to get on a Hotline League, you better be a goddamn sub.
The callers get they don't have to pay to be on the show. They just get
so you're saying you're using unpaid volunteers? Are they interns?
They are. I think that a lot of them get college credit. Okay, Mark. Mark, where'd our callers go? We had two of the.
I kicked one out and one just left.
We have two of the waiting room.
That's because he wants to be paid.
Yeah,
the people have risen up.
Oh, they're striking right now. Actually, on us.
Put him back in the waiting room. We'll see what happens.
Go check. Yeah, go investigate.
Are you gonna do your read now?
Oh yes, let's do that. Actually, good point. Let's talk about Grubhub as we're talking about sponsors. So one of the cool things that we're doing in this ad break is announcing that for the first time ever, Hotline League has its own custom code available from March 14th to March 16th, and it's available only the first 2,500 orders. I think it would be sick and I know, it's a lot to ask, but if we can actually just use out all of those codes and they run out. So it's you use code Travis5. I will put it in the description. Actually, I will message right now to make sure my podcast person does. And when you do that, you save $5 on your order of $10 or more. So this is actually a pretty big deal because normally we have to scrounge off of the LCS promo codes and promote those, but we've received our own. So please don't let this go to waste. Go order something from Grubhub. Again, it's the minimum is very low. It's for these types of things. It's $10, and you receive $5 off. So if you do that between March 14th and March 16th, that would be super, super swell, because if like 5 people do it, then they're never going to give me another one of these, and then no one will ever sponsor me again. So the stakes are high here, people. Travis5 as the promo code. Please go do that. We love Grubhub. Check out the Grubhub guarantee while you're ordering, and use my link in the description, and I'll also do Natural Ninja, my mod, already did in the chat. You can use that link to order. But again, Travis5, first 2,500, March 14th to March 16th. All right, Mark, you want to go see what's happening?
What's happening is the current caller was on their phone, and now they're having issues. I cannot encourage people enough. If you're on your phone, we can try and make it work. But if you have the option to be on your computer, for the love of God, please get on your computer.
Do we need to ask somebody do we need more takes, like 1 or 2 more takes?
No, we definitely don't need 2 more. The person should be swapping on the computer soon.
Okay.
I might start their topic for them, and they can join in if they have any follow-ups.
Well, let me ask really quickly to Marty, what types of expectations or hopes do you have for this? Because I guess how big is the potential monetization opportunity for the league? Because clearly you already have teams that are selling sponsors, their own sponsors. Then you have Riot that is selling league partners. Then you have agents that every now and then, every 6 months or something, maybe bring a small deal to a player. And so you already have so much commercial activity in the space that's happening. Like, is there much left, I guess, for one team to pick up whenever you guys are going out to sell stuff?
Well, the answer to that would certainly be yes. Otherwise, why are we wasting our time? No offense to Phil and the players who I love very dearly, but it's a business, and I would not have been able to convince them based on I love these guys and you should work with them. So there had to be a real strong business case. But truthfully, you should recognize, first of all, that sponsorship is not an area that's what we call a primary category, right? So we definitely do what we call athlete marketing, where we'll do a deal and go procure athletes, and it could be for a large group, or it could be for individual athletes, no different than an agent might bring. But we're not taking money out of their pockets. We're bringing additional opportunities in those cases, right? Because they happen to come through our doors because we're connected to the biggest brands in the world at the very, very top level. We're talking to chief marketing officers of Fortune 500 companies, not the coordinator level person. And so that's a part of our business. We're really more talking about things like collectibles, hard goods, the areas where we can add value because it's not already there, right? So one of the things we met with the owners, last week, and one of the things we very specifically said is, like, we're not trying to do your business for you. There's a whole set of business that's not being done today. Let's take trading cards, for example. That's a huge opportunity. Anybody that doesn't follow the trading card market, it is exploded the last 2 years. It is monstrously big, and they're thirsty for new IP and new opportunities. And we're partners with every single major trading card partner manufacturer out there, right? So the advantage we bring is that we know all the other deals in the space. We're able to negotiate, knowing that we have other deals with those partners as well, and we can get the best deal that exists out there. So, yes, sponsorship things might happen over time, but that's certainly not a main focus area.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Wait, actually, one quick follow-up. Is there anything else besides trading cards? Because you guys have mentioned trading cards a lot, and so that's my only thing is. I'm sorry, Mark, but I had to ask. What else is out there besides trading cards that you guys see as opportunities?
I mean, I think the collectibles category in general is very large, right? So, when you think of things like a Funko Pop, or you think of any collectible that can exist, posters, you name it, there's a broad opportunity like we would do for any of our PAs. What we're doing now, so we've signed the deal, obviously, is we're doing what's called category mapping, where we take the PA and we figure out all the categories that exist, what things are a waste of our time because we don't, they're already fully monetized, or they're in the league's hands, the rights, and then where can we target to tackle because they're open and big opportunities. communities. That's kind of what's going on right now. But I would say that, coming into this, we knew collectibles as a very large category, and trading cards being part of that is going to be a primary focus because it's barely tapped, quite frankly, in esports today.
Okay. Very good. Sorry, Mark. I had to ask. Fez is here. Fez, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Mobile, Alabama.
Mobile, Alabama. I'm going to turn you up because you're a little quiet.
And Fez, are you being paid in exposure or promo codes tonight?
We're actually TGI is actually a charity organization.
Yeah, 501c3
501c3.
nonprofit. Yeah, exactly.
Donating my late.
Is it 401c3? We're a 501c3.
501c3.
So. Yeah, exactly.
I had a 501c3 back in the day.
Yes. Well,
humble brag.
Actually, we're one of the only esports or any companies in esports that are profitable. So we're not a charity. Anyway, Fez, you're kind of quiet. If you can get closer to your mic when you say your question. But what do you want to talk about on the show?
Is this better right here, or
yes,
still kind of quiet?
Better.
All right. So my biggest take was the LCS viewership issue is not related to content, but the fact that the generation that started it, like me when I was younger, they've moved on with their lives. They've had, graduated college, family, jobs, etc. And the failure more on the LCS as time has gone along is not connecting with their younger viewers as they're growing up, and with any kind of meaningful stories, meaningful players, because my biggest issue with the LCS these days is there's nothing compelling with the newer players coming in. As to when Bjergsen and High and all these exciting players were coming up, there was a real sense of struggle. That struggle doesn't exist in the league today. It just seems that everybody's just there for the most part.
Tell Tenacity that there's no struggle in the LCS. Okay.
Yeah. The boardroom struggle, what everyone really is watching for.
Mark, do you have a creative way to broaden this out to our two guests, since it's not really a players association?
So I think it is, in the sense that what Phil spent a lot of time talking about was they want to do what's best for players. And I think obviously rising tide raises all ships, the ecosystem as a whole. It concerns the players, the fact that viewership has not been great recently. And what kinds of things is the Players Association look at doing potentially to help this kind of stuff, to encourage their players to be more marketable? Is it about trying to find opportunities for them to grow the players outside of the LCS? Because I feel sometimes some teams, for example, feel like they're just the LCS is the exposure for the players and we don't really help them. Is the Players Association, whatever they do, something to take some of the funds that they're potentially earning through Marty's schemes and use that to boost their own players? Do you start doing content with them? Would you try to get them opportunities to build their brands at the fucking whatever the sports Oscars are? I don't know exactly. I don't have any specific ideas, but
SPs?
Finding ways to drive viewership and interest into the scene beyond just they play in the LCS.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people ask me frequently about viewership and where our thoughts are. I think my response in the AMA I did today was the Serenity Prayer from Alcoholics Anonymous, which is might get some chuckles, but it is about knowing what things you can control, basically, and having understanding of the things you can't. And for our players, we have a lot of advocacy routes. It's running the marketing for the LCS or running team content are not the purview of us. But I would say, putting back on my owner hat from once upon a time, I do think that there's some some work that team owners have to do to look at I think oftentimes stale models for how to engage with fans and people who are watching the league or who could be watching the league. You talk about players not struggling, Fez, people didn't stop watching the NBA when, people started making millions of dollars, right? Success was not a factor of interest. What was a factor of interest was constantly being aware that your audience is changing. You're getting, whether your audience is getting older or whether you need to be tapping into younger audience, you need to be thinking about how do you engage with those groups. If your core audience is, engaging through a different method, you need to be adapting to that as well. Maybe the YouTube, follow along series are not the bread and butter anymore. Maybe there's something else. And so I think there's certainly a part that's not really to do with us that is important for people to be reflective on. But there is a thing that we can do, we are not a body that is incapable of helping to promote our players. And when you say that are not as many exciting players, I would say that there are many exciting players. Like every generation of new players has, like, there's talent and there's charisma in those groups, and the fact that people don't see that is a failing of the institutions, not a failing of the players. The players themselves bring like skill and creativity to the table every single day, and we need to do more to help promote them and help show just how exciting what they do is. From our side, it's a big part of working with Marty, and a big part of why our players are excited to be doing group rights is that the LCS should have had a trading card program years ago, frankly. Like, there should have been people who were collecting Bjergsen rookie cards once upon a time who now have their Bjergsen rookie card that's worth tons of money because, he's the biggest player of all time. And the next year's set of cards, they're really excited to try and figure out and find and collect who the new rookie is. This is a big part of traditional sports, is the connection of fandom to stakes, right? Some people use sports betting or fantasy sports or trading cards. All these are methods that people use to engage more deeply with their content that they love, and they're all areas that engage with group rights that aren't being utilized right now. So I'm really excited for what we can do to put more opportunities out there for fans to be engaging with the players they care about, and I think that that's a step that we can take. It's a step we're going to take. I think it's a step that's also going to benefit everyone in the ecosystem. But, I think everyone just has to be critical about how they can, do more and spend a little less time worrying about things they can't control and spend more time thinking about, where can you have impact.
I was actually having a conversation with a reporter last week leading up to our announcement. And, group rights, as we said at the beginning of the show, has a lot of complexities to explain to a new audience. But once we got past that, one of the things we're talking about is, like, beyond monetization, where's the value here? Like, what are the different values? And we talked about things, of course, like path to unionization, any of those fun things that Phil talked about. But one of the things that stands out for me is my wife's uncle is a big Steelers fan, and his ability to engage with the Steelers is almost limitless, right? He can engage with so many products, whether it's a fantasy product like Phil said, or physical products. He can buy trading cards, you name it, and that includes his favorite players from the Steelers, right? And I go back to my very first favorite sports team, the San Antonio Spurs, and David Robinson, and the poster I had on my wall, and the trading card I collected, and the jersey, and like just so many pieces that engaged me with him and kept me engaged over time. And, what's interesting about your point, Fez, is I stopped watching basketball like 10 years ago. I've never stopped being a David Robinson fan. And when I find myself pulled back in, I'm pulled back in by my connection that I built over time to that team, not to the broad game of basketball, right? Like, the game of basketball doesn't draw me back in. It's all of that deep connection I had that kept me a fan for, 25 years, quite honestly. So I think that, like, just the fact that we're going to be able to put more products in market that allow fans to engage, I keep using trading cards because it's such an easy one, is going to deepen fan engagement, is going to allow people to stay more connected to the LCS.
Okay, really quickly, the interesting thing was, at first I thought Fez's take was a little crazy. Like, the idea that people only watch LCS if these players are struggling to exist financially and otherwise.
Buster Travis is coming back here.
I think people have misunderstood the Fez struggle point. I think he's saying, like, their efforts to become great were widely seen, whereas when players stream less and, like, all you see are, like, these kind of manicured reality shows, there's a little less grit, there's a little less visibility into their struggles. Not that, like, we need to see them eating top ramen for every meal or whatever,
And I want to, like, clarify that struggle thing. My biggest thing is, like, and this, I don't want it to go off to a big tangent. I think COVID really, really hurt this sport for the past 2 years because I think there is no engagement, therefore there's no connection, not an easy connection at least. So my biggest argument, though, is that in the past, I think still, like, this is just my opinion, the biggest mistake the LCS ever made was franchise. I think the struggle
this definitely does go off on too much.
Yeah. But anyways, I'll be quick. Like, the struggle that I mean is that all these players had a relevant story coming up, and nobody necessarily needed to tell it because the connection was there. There were several different events, and maybe the LCS is going to gear up to that now that COVID's dying down. But I think the lack of events, whether it's All-Stars or whatever, it really has put a lull in the past 2 years. And I'm old. I'm 38. I've been with League since I graduated college. But I find myself on the weekend watching the Premiership, the APL, way more because there's fans. It's more exciting. And the League right now, the LCS, it is very boring to watch. Even though there were good narratives there, there's just no connection. That's what my argument is.
So,
the
really,
struggle is the connection.
I'm gonna speed run this next part, which is to say, one, everybody in the chat goes true when they talk about like franchising was a mistake. I fucking hate this shit. It drives me crazy. As if all these people are like, it was so great whenever people could just make money off of David Slan, or David Slan could just make money flipping like Team Coast and Apex and all this stuff to people who would just get relegated 6 months later. Like, give me a fucking break. The league has always been based off of teams that stayed at the top and were stable. It wasn't like people are like, thank God, like I'm so invested right now whenever one of these random teams, TDK, well, they got themselves kicked out, right? But like
fucking Ruck shows up.
Rux in the chat says bring back relegations. My God, the league is not. It's not as though popularity in any of the teams that were getting promoted and relegated constantly. The only thing that would be different about the league right now is you'd see like Golden Guardians. Maybe people would like CLG getting relegated, but they just get replaced by a brand that nobody knows anything about that would be gone 6 months later. So, setting aside the stupid relegation and franchising thing that people talk about. Sorry, caller.
I don't think your views are stupid, Fez.
It's okay. I've been used to Travis. With
He's just saying that because he wants you to sign on his fucking dotted line and negotiate for you and take a cut of your money. Okay. Don't listen to him, Fez. The best way for us to figure stuff out is a direct connection between the two of us. My point is, on the monetization side, Phil, it is true that like teams control and Riot controls a lot of the content. However, back in the day when people were more scrappy, which is not, I know what Fez was originally meaning, there were incentives to go create all this extra content, like build a big following on Twitter, to go stream a ton and create content around yourself and build a brand, and to hire an editor to build out your YouTube channel and to build like a presence in the space. And I feel as though those incentives have kind of changed because now players are able to make a bajillion dollars, especially when you're on the top end, and then they don't necessarily feel like, okay, getting an extra 50 grand this year from streaming or doing YouTube stuff, which in the past would have been huge and could double their salary, now is just like a small percentage, right? And so that is kind of an interesting point that Fez did not mean to go towards, but as we misinterpreted, I think did.
Yeah, well, I think that there's a few things there, but it is a good point. I would describe it as the myth of like the big player like wants to do nothing. I don't think that that's true, and I think you still see a lot of the biggest players who have who get the weight of expectation, especially whenever a league is struggling, to put more on their shoulders. I think it's a hard weight for them to carry, and if you look at something like F1, for instance, who has I think done the most drastically like good job of how to transform a sport that really had little connection, especially in the US, and create a lot of identity and faces overnight in many ways, and really elevate a sport that was kind of a one-person sport for many years, right? And turn it into something where people care about teams that have 0% chance of winning. There's no way that Haas is ever going to like lift a trophy in like the next 5 years for anybody who follows that. But they're at the bottom of the of the proverbial standings at all times, and yet they their racers are exciting to fans because there is content that is actually engaging to them. So you can say that like there's plenty of content out there and that it's not connecting in the right ways, or there's plenty of content, but I'm saying you need to think about what's not working and figure out how to make it work, because again, like the players are interesting. They're like, it's not just like, wow, the LCS is struggling because we have hired 50 uninteresting players over the last 5 years consecutively, and like they're really not delivering. That's just not it. And players are doing content, they are participating in things, and so they there needs to be a thought about how do you make that more successful. How do you as a league do more? I think to Fez's point as well, though, I think he brings up a very salient point in this, which is that like the lack of fans, the lack of that like in-person thing is a big deal. Some people thought that when sports went dark, or that when sports went dark, that esports would flourish, but viewership struggled across esports when we went away from arenas as well during COVID. And when sports came back and the stands were empty, every single sports team or every single sports league had its worst viewership in years, basically. Like the NBA was doing terrible numbers. Like all these sports were doing terribly without fans in the stadium. So clearly there's a
while people had nothing else to do. Let's keep in mind too, right?
Yeah, people are still locked down.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now that there are fans back in those sports, their viewership is up. Like, sports are doing much better. The NFL is having a banner year again. So there's clearly a connection there, like, for fandom. And I think, again, speaking back to group rights to some extent, like access, like things that, impact fandom, like there's so many things that aren't being utilized in our space that one team is going to work on. But fans in the seats is something that does impact people and how much they care about a sport, how much they engage with it. Like, cheering matters, apparently. Who knew?
Just to kind of wrap this up, I've got a question for you, Marty, because Fez is talking about viewership. I know, again, everybody thinks that relegation is the key to viewership, but one of the things that drums that I've been beating for a long time is the player turnover rate in the league is tremendously high in terms of if I think it was 2020 that maybe where between 2020, if you started on a team in the LCS, most likely you were not starting in the LCS at the start of 2021. I need to go back and look again. But there's tremendous churn among players in the league. And I imagine that makes your job very difficult because not only is it difficult for people to build brands around that stuff, but then it's also a situation where, like, these long-term collectible deals or whatever, like, you just have players that are phasing in and out of the league constantly. So I don't know if this is something you've thought about or have any considerations on.
Well, I would say, like, it's a much bigger deal for an agent who is focused on individual players because we're talking about the group. It's still the same. It's still 100 players every time, right? So if Team X swaps out a player A for player B, I still have 100 players at the end of the day because there are always 100 players in the league. Especially having been a European team owner for many years, I regret to say that, of course, some of the biggest players from other leagues do come to North America with already huge built-in fan bases, quite frankly, right? And so it's not like we're trading out the biggest player for a rookie all the time. In fact, a lot of times we're trading out for some huge superstar coming from overseas. So I don't worry that all of a sudden we're going to have a bunch of brand new people with 3,000 Twitter followers in all 100 slots. I think that churn is inevitably also good for products because, as Phil mentioned, collecting the rookie card of, let's take Danny for example last year, right? Like, in that excitement around a rookie player, that's really cool to see what's going to happen the next year. And that, in the world of trading cards is where value is built over time, right? You get a card at the beginning of the year. Do they live up to the hype? Do they build upon it, et cetera? And then next year, the runs change. There's, different cards available in the set because of it, because of the year the player had. So if we were talking 100% turnover every single year, maybe. But even then, again, it's you're talking about such an incredibly well established fan base for a large percentage of the league players. It's not all brand new players.
Dude, fuck the Danny rookie card. I want the perks and sword art cards because those things had very limited runs.
Dude. Would they be considered rookies? I don't think so.
Not rookies. I'm just talking about
he means the fact that they're gone.
But yeah, Marty was hyping up the fact we bring in players from other regions.
Releases.
I'll meme myself for a second here. People talk about those splice stickers in Counter-Strike because they only existed one time and that's it. So
that's okay. We could use relegation because then you'd have the teams that only were in there for 6 months too, on top of the players only in there for 6 months. That's an ultra rare.
Bring back relegation so that Marty has to do a new deal every 5 seconds with teams. Go ahead, Mark.
So this is my last thing before my brain AFKs. There's two little things. On the point about bringing pros over from Europe, I wonder how much of an influence that really has. Perks notwithstanding, because he's like literally the Western GOAT. But like a player like Inspired, 50K on Twitter, mostly from European LCS or LEC fans who come over to NA. The NA fans are already here. He didn't like bring new NA fans. He hopefully just engages with the ones that exist. How many LEC fans come over to watch him? I think like that's an interesting question of like how much does a successful yet not huge branded LEC player really add compared to a rookie? That like is there actually a significant difference in how important they are to the league? I've actually never really thought about it until we started this conversation. That's just where my head's at. The second thing I was going to ask, for the love of God, please get a public stats site that like works with Riot. I don't know exactly how this deal is going to work, but you talk about like, getting a deal representing all the players. Please, with Tim or the Game's a Legend guy, like work with them to get all the data from Riot so we can have a public stats database. I'm so sick of not having public stats available. It's a
Mark,
fucking
none of these people have money to give them.
What's that?
Tim can't go pay Marty. Marty's here to make money for the league so that Phil can keep his job. Literally, so that Phil can continue to pay rent.
Partnered with Riot and the players, so like this is the official stats site, and then everyone goes there. I don't know, dude. I'm just saying. I'm pitching this to literally everyone in the ecosystem. For the love of God, get a public stats site. It's a joke that we don't have one. 10 years? League 10? Where the fuck are my stats?
Can I answer your first question, or we want to just complain about stats websites?
Either way, your call.
Okay, cool. So I would say that, like, Inspired, first of all, I love Inspired. I think he's an amazing player to watch. But I think absolutely number one, that's still, it's again, 'cause it's a group thing. So it's about the combined fan base, right? It's not about any one individual player. So it's about this total fan base. But I will also say that when it comes to esports in general, we aren't just going to sell in America and Canada, let's say, for example, right? Like the people that are going to participate are going to be fans of Inspired who happen to be overseas. They are going to be fans who are even in Asia, let's say, for example. I mean, we already obviously have the APAC region because of the fact that the players are folded in from that region as residents. So we're already talking about bigger than North America anyway. So I think that if you think of trading cards being an example, trading cards for the NFL are certainly not all bought in the US, right? There's definitely trading cards being sold in other areas as well.
Marty, if you bring up trading cards one more time, Twitch chat's going to have a fucking aneurysm.
Did you say trading cards?
Yeah. Like, my friend, you need to come up with additional examples because
we're going to use fat heads as our easy go-to from here on. Okay?
Yeah, okay.
When you're thinking about getting your Danny Fathead in his rookie season.
Fatheads already came into the space and did like 5 seconds worth of stuff with teams.
Funko Pops.
Mark, just to be clear, Riot has done deals with data folks before, like Sport Radar. I put it in the chat. And then these things never go anywhere, right? It just takes some money from them, I think, and then nothing occurs from it.
Don't talk to me about Sports Radar, dude. I can't say it, but like, don't talk to me about it. A lot of these things too, like Riot makes deals with them to help Riot with their own internal stats tool. It's not to make a website, as I understand it. I could be wrong.
I think you are wrong. Sports Radar is supposed to like take these things out. The way that Sports Radar works is they go and get the data from Riot, and then they are supposed to go make deals with other companies. This partnership will increase access.
Like ESPN, for example.
Yeah, this partnership will increase access to League of Legends esports data, enabling the community and third-party operators to create a wide array of services, bolstering the sport. This is from 2019. Did this ever happen, Mark? Would you say?
I try to actively use Sports Radar. They have an internal tool. I don't think they ever gave that data to anyone else. And Jat has talked about how like what teams get data to, like the teams don't even have data to the global database. It's a mess. It's a giant mess. And if you just made everything public, for the love of God,
Marty, let's do a deal right here. Do you have the number of the people who run Basketball Reference and Pro Football Reference? Let's call.
I'm calling them now.
Let's do a deal for Mark.
Okay, yes. I'm tweeting at Sport Radar right now. I'm just saying, Mark.
You have a deal.
Was curious where he could get some public LCS sports data. Okay, there we go. Should I hit tweet on this, Mark, or is it going to create like a issue for you internally?
Sure.
Right?
I don't know. I don't really know.
I don't want to get you in trouble. I'm tweeting it. Boom.
You should just get rid of my name. I was going to say get rid of my name. And
I had just hit it.
I had to throw me under the bus. Thanks, dude.
Yeah. Well, my bad. I know we were going to try to keep it secret between the four of us, the 800 live viewers, the 40,000 people that will watch the VOD, and then the 10,000 people that will listen to the audio version.
I'm so fucked now. I'm sure everyone follows Sports Radar and will see that tweet.
Yeah. Okay. So there you have it. Thank you, Fez. I know we've gone way off topic. This is one of those times where the chat goes, "Oh my God, the caller's still there." But anything you want to say before we say goodbye to you, Fez?
Biggest thing. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Biggest thing I definitely want to say, I got two shout outs. I'll be real quick. Well, first one is to my wife for putting up with me. And then second one is just to Tim, please stop protecting JoJo. Stop standing him. Like, let his play speak for itself. Like, I'm so tired of hearing him tweet and say, it's going to be okay. For the love of God, let the people decide.
Dude, I love Tim so much, but thank you for saying this because Tim became like a fucking evil genius's Twitter cheerleader when he stopped doing Run It, And I'm like, what happened to you, man? It's just I don't know what happened.
Once the overbearing editorial hand of Travis released him to talk about what he wanted.
He simps for JoJo more than I simped for Peter, and I feel like that's a pretty big statement. Okay, thanks, Fez.
Thank you, guys. Good night.
Catch you later.
See ya.
All right, that is the show. Phil and Marty, thanks so much for coming on. Anything? We'll start with you, Phil. Anything you want to shout out? I know you did an AMA where people can go read more stuff if they want to learn more about this.
Yeah, please check out our AMA. Follow us on Twitter. We are an active Twitter account now. We were not once upon a time, but we actually say things, we respond to things. If you call us out for not doing things, occasionally we'll respond to you.
Who's operating it?
People.
Okay.
Is it you? Is it like one of those brand, like, you know, where you pretend it's like a normal person and you make really weird, like, off-color jokes, like you're just a random person, but it's really like a conglomerate of people okaying the tweets, like Wendy's or something?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically me, and like I give like the info to the board before I tweet anything particularly salacious. But every once in a while, I just tweet that I'm going to unionize the Travis Gafford Industries crew. You know.
Also, how dare you, Mark, imply that Wendy's isn't a really witty single person running that account?
My bad.
Can you guys get, underneath this new deal, can you guys get rights to Revenge and Vulcan's images? Because you didn't have them for the quotes that you tweeted out, but you did have them for Core and Darshan and Björk.
We did have to ask Riot for images, and they only gave us a few images, and then we kind of kept going back asking for more, and they just...
You know what you could do? You could go spend $100 on an eSpat account and get access to their pictures on the fucking eSpat website like they want the media to do, Phil. Maybe eSpat will cut you in on their $100 annual media rates.
As a profitable company, can't you afford to legally purchase the rights to these player images?
Oh, I definitely can do that. I don't know if... Oh, actually, great question. Is eSpat paying for the rights for the player rights from these images? Do they have to?
Are they paying for the rights? I mean, if they have...
So eSpat has a deal with Riot to post these pictures.
We can't answer like a specific one today. First of all, we're not lawyers. That's what we have lawyers for.
Sure.
Nice.
And second,
we'll hit up Bryce Blum and ask him.
I'm normally in bed by now, I'm an old man, so my brain is slowed way down.
That's fine. But yes, eSpat, they'll go charge you for the photos.
Check us out on Twitter. Call us out if you need us to say something about something, and we'll do our best. And if you're being abused by your employer in the esports space, reach out, even if you're not a player. I'll do my best to see that you don't get fucked too hard.
Okay. So I want to say Mark has a great gig here. Marty, what do you want to shout out?
Honestly, I'm just excited for this deal because it's why I took this job 16 months ago. So I'm shouting out Phil and the PA and the board and Darshan and the people and the executive committee who have the faith in me, and I mean really me, because these other people they didn't know until we put it together, right? To say, yeah, we're willing to let another sports company, which is always scary in esports, come in and help us because we know the track record a lot of times in sports companies isn't necessarily great. And I'm really staking a lot on this because I really do truly believe in what we're doing. So thank you to those folks that all believed in us enough to give us a shot, because I really think we're going to do some groundbreaking work and make a difference.
Nice. Mark?
I have one more thing. And please don't forget Travis 5 on Grubhub the next 2 days. It's very important.
Oh,
snap. Thank you. I appreciate that. You're learning quickly. It is actually... it is Travis 5. There you go. Mark?
Shout out Yu-Gi-Oh! Peace.
You want to talk about your stream moving dates?
Nah, we'll cover that some other time.
Okay. Well, that's it for Hotline League. I am immediately after this going to be running a sub goal to run an interview I did with Vulcan about the Players Association that I have not put out yet, and I expect Phil to stick around for that. In fact, I'm going to maybe I'll set the sub goal to a point where Phil has to spend his money to get it revealed, so that he can hear what Phil said.
This.
Yeah. Well, it was. I asked him questions about it in the normal post game interview process, Phil, as I am allowed to do. So, and as I have done many times. So, stick around for that if you're watching live. Otherwise, that'll show up on the YouTube channel sometime this week. And thank you to Marty and Phil for coming on. hey, listen, everybody, I know we got kind of inside esports with this episode, but you guys seem to have a lot of opinions about unionization and players' rights and all this stuff all the time. So hopefully you stuck around for the full fucking episode so that you can actually get educated on it before you go make a Reddit comment. That's it. Thanks, everyone. We'll catch you next week.